just caught up.
So, good evening. Good evening. Our high-tech system here. What happens when you mix the world of Microsoft and with the Unix brain. So, appreciate everyone coming out this evening. I'm Todd Marbury, serving as president for the Thornwood board this year. With us, we've got Bob Mader, who's from 2 and 3.
You're not talking fast enough.
I'm not talking fast enough. That's what I'm saying. We have Laura Nickel, who's on 1 and 4 also. And we have Mike Roan, who's on 1 and 4 also. And then William is at work tonight. And so he's here on 2 and 3 as well. William's one of our newer board members, been on kind of coming into his first full year. We picked him up midterm last year, which has been great. Being a resident, he jumped right in. So what we're here to talk tonight about here in our town hall meeting is really one centralized idea. It's to really, for everyone to understand our expenses and our need to really improve our annual maintenance fee in terms of how we go about doing that. There's been a lot of discussion last year about that. I think it was all good discussion. It was all positive discussion. It made everybody aware of the need in terms of what we need to do for Thornwood to really be able to not just survive, but really continue to grow. So we really tried to put some of that together graphically, and we can talk about that in terms of some actual numbers also. We've also got some other ideas we're going to share with everybody based on feedback from residents that we've gathered, not just from last year, but from this year and previous years as well, in terms of some things that we really would like to see Thornwood do to really improve the neighborhood. I don't think we're going to have a problem with being respectful of each other or limiting our questions to a number of minutes or anything like that, given the number of people we have here. But please understand this is an open forum. Feel free to ask a question. We just do it with a little respect from whomever might be talking at that particular time. Just quick highlights of some of the things that have occurred here in 2012. Recycling is remaining consistent, about a point from last year, which is good news. We mailed everybody out, and to my knowledge, we've only had one person discontinue their recycling. But the good news is that we've had several people who've moved into the neighborhood that all wanted to sign up for recycling as well. So, we'll continue to grow it as much as we possibly can. And it's just really through word of mouth, through email, and things of that nature. By and large, it's the trucks in the neighborhood, I think, that have continued to keep people interested in the recycling, and those who are certainly signing up and doing some things there. As part of the recycling, we have a green waste program, and as you know, that is currently underway. Green waste runs March through, and this year it'll run March through November. We extended it a month in November just because it's really kind of a growing season. Kind of how, depending on how this year goes, on any given day in Houston, it can be spring in January or February. So we are looking to in consideration for next year having green waste being a year-round.
What's that?
It is affordable. It is feasible for us to be able to do that, and it does make sense to be able to do that. And more people are kind of concerned about it. And it's a good program just across the board. I don't know what impact green waste has in the overall landscape in terms of landfills and things of that nature, on the fact that it is significant. It does reduce our overall waste, and this came from World Disposal. He estimates that it's probably about 60% of our overall garbage during those peak months of being March through August. That's a pretty significant number. So it's not going to ultimately reduce our overall garbage cost. If we do go year-round, we might see some decrease in the actual cost per house from a garbage standpoint. It kind of remains to be seen whether it probably washes out with the increase that we would have for the extra fees that come from the off months, things of that nature. As you remember, last year we did have some special assessments. We set up a fund of approximately $10,000 that's geared strictly for the perimeter fences, whether it's a wooden fence, a brick fence, it's a planter box, things of that nature, to establish perimeter areas, entrance markers, things of that nature. We've gotten the current estimate, and we did a very broad estimate across the neighborhood. And the initial estimate is about $25,000 for everything that we need to be done. And we're not necessarily going to jump out and obviously spend all that money. What we did find out is that it's not any cheaper to repair it versus letting it fall, which is the good news there. And that was one of the things that we really needed to truly understand. Obviously, there's an inherent danger in terms of just letting something fall. It's going to fall on someone, it's going to hit the vehicle, so you really kind of have to address those areas. There's only one area that's probably a priority concern in terms of falling, and it's this fence right out here. And just to give you an idea, if you look at this fence right out here, and I don't know if you can see it right over the bushes or not, but there's 3 8-foot sections there that would have to be replaced. 2 are the ones that are leaning, but because of how a brick fence is built, you really have to pull that third one down. And that estimate runs about just under $3,000. So it's pretty expensive to really do some brick wall repair, and so this has been a good exercise for us in learning some things of that nature. We've got the landscape improvements on the way. We did change to a new landscape company this year. We spent the first couple of months of this year kind of working out some kinks. I think as of the end of March, first part of April, we got all those worked out. Laura is working with those people weekly to make sure that they're on top of things and fulfilling their obligations to us. So color changes are coming
Up the 11th.
the 11th. Okay, that's great. So that is Thursday.
Next week.
It's a week from.
Yeah.
It's a week from Friday. No, they said we missed the March window, so we're waiting for the May window. Apparently there's a time when you can get flowers that will last months at a time. You don't want to take April's flats, apparently. You want to wait for May's flats. So that's what
And we'll see a consistent color change across the neighborhood every 4 weeks.
all the entrances and beds will get the same flowers, so there'll be a consistency, a flower theme, if you want.
There'll also be some planting, which is strictly a one-time planting over the Thornwood pool along the back fence. That'll come into effect as well. They're going to do that the same day.
They're going to try to get that done beforehand, actually.
They're going to.
Because it's not, they're going to try to get the big stuff in first.
Gotcha. And then there'll be some things that occur in this pool area here as well. So it's an overall plan, and this is the first time that Thornwood has really kind of, at least since I've been in the neighborhood, has kind of gone with one company to really try to manage everything. Really kind of takes a lot of the day-to-day responsibilities off the board by turning this over to professionals and letting them manage that, maintain that. And then our next color change would be fall.
Basically, they'll try to put us back on the regular schedule. Right,
Yeah.
which is like September and March.
And one of the things that we're able to do, because we are in Houston, is, have 2 seasonal plantings. Occasionally you are going to get the cold front that's going to kill everything, and you kind of manage to do that. But, we really worked with those folks to really try to say, look, we need to maximize our beauty and maximize the amount of money we have at minimal cost. And
They also
really
agreed to take
do that.
the grass clippings, everywhere they do the grass clippings, and put them in the compost pile in the park, which balances out all the leaves that fall. Whereas if you get just leaves piled up, you get roaches and mold. Whereas if you put in a lot of grass and sweep it all into the corner, eventually you'll get mulch and then compost, and then you'll get dirt, which you can fill those spots with, which is way better than having them haul it away or having it rot in place. I'm very happy with it.
And there's a lot of grass. And if you want to dump your grass in the compost pile, just knock yourself out and we can get
Yeah, but no more leaves, please.
No
No more leaves.
We can get you that information.
Not for a while. It's going to take a while to catch up. A lot of people dumped their leaves back there, and it was overwhelming.
Just me.
No, we're not talking pine needles. We're talking actually, we actually had they can take away like 50 bags of leaves before we could compost what was left.
Actually, I want one plug for them though. I went through the Farm Ranch pool the other day, looking around for swim and there were no ant piles. Which, if you've ever walked around that pool, that's an amazing feat, because they treat for ants every time they come out across all the.
It's not just that they're treating the common areas where people.
It was right inside the pool, and whether it's from mound always up by the plastic container, it wasn't there. Impressive.
Thanks.
No real new technology additions. The website has clearly been the big thing. The newsletter, we've not been able to get the newsletter out this quarter because I think we've all been going a lot of different directions. But we are going to move the newsletter to an online email-based format as well. We are still interested in mailing the newsletter out. We're committed to doing away with that completely. But we are going to be getting one out. I think called the summer edition of
Well, they did the spring edition. They did the spring edition February or March or whatever.
That was spring edition?
I call that
Okay.
one spring.
Did
So
you?
this
Okay.
Excellent.
This will
So
be
we're on
summer.
track for
All
So
right.
I'll probably
Very
start
good.
working on that.
So if you'd like to contribute, you're more than welcome to contribute. You can email anything to cc@tw1234.com, or you can send it to the board at tw1234.com. Either way, we'll be happy to include that. As far as one other thing from a technology standpoint, we're looking to do some upgrades to the pools that'll make things a little bit easier for us to manage the entrance gates and things of that nature. It would be some significant benefit to the residents. I think we're still working on that solution, trying to find something that's going to really work for us there, an automated key system. We were hoping to really kind of pull that trigger. We got into it. It took a little extra time because it was a very expensive project for us to be able to do that. So we'd like to not jump the gun on that, but Boston, I think, was a really good idea for us to be able to do that. We'll be getting that coming in here this summer. And then last is the Turkey Creek Green Space, as I called it. Mike and Laura, I think Catherine Wright, Sarah Tyler, I think probably even Linda Knowles, and I know that there are a number of other people kind of rallied in the last 30 days to utilize this space a little bit better. And the word utilize is very broad. There are no specifics with it. But I know Mike has set up. Y'all had a meeting tomorrow with
Urban Harvest, was it?
Urban Harvest and the guy from the Katy Prairie Conservancy. They recently did a summit on community green space, and so I got them to agree to meet and visit with us and just help pass around some ideas how we could use the park over there.
Well, it looks like we've got more garden blocks going in. So if someone has been wanting to get involved in the garden, we've got the dirt in one place and the boxes in another right now.
Are we addressing that now, or are we going to address that later?
Yes.
The green space.
We can talk about it after we get through the financial sides. I can tell you, I'm not, Mike and those folks, Mike's really kind of run with it. He's taking a point on it, which is great. And there's been, I can tell you over the last 100 days, there's been probably 100 different things to do with it.
I know, I've been privy to the emails,
yeah.
so that's why we had.
So,
Yeah, so
we'll
just
get into that.
as a point of order on the agenda and stuff, what we thought we would do is have Todd kind of give everybody a kind of quick update of just operationally where we are right now with things that we're working on, and then when we get into the roundtable part, we want to start really diving into what are the specific things that we could or would potentially want to invest in going forward.
So this is really kind of the crux of the meeting here. And many, I recognize, really all your faces. You make annual meetings and things of that nature. And as you know, really, and this is over the last 6 years where we took a look at each year the board of varying members has come forward and said, clearly we just don't have enough money to be able to do the things that we want to do. And not necessarily the things that we want to do, but just simply to pay the bills. So what we've really we're trying to do in the next few minutes is really just kind of show that to everyone graphically. And the information that you see here will also be communicated out to the neighborhood as well, so that everybody can see this information. And it's very clear in order for Thornwood to grow, and literally grow, not just from a green standpoint, from a people standpoint, from a revenue standpoint also, we have to revise our covenants to be able to allow us to increase that annual fee. And I think what you'll see here as we go through, it's really been these last 3 years that we've been passing on the special assessments. And the previous boards here, they didn't pass on any special assessments. They just simply took money out of the reserve fund. Nothing wrong with that at all. But at some point, Thornwood runs out of the reserve fund. And that's really what you're starting to see here. And as we get into those slides, you'll see some of that. So over these last 6 years, we've needed an extra $50 just to be able to balance the books, to pay the bills. That's not growing. That's not building anything. That's not adding to. That's not doing anything to try to benefit you as a resident or really improve your home values. That's really about just trying to keep everything current. And these numbers have been derived in a number of ways. The 135, the 83, and 85, there were things in there that included special assessments for special plantings. Some of it was just simply to cover bills. Some of it was for, in this past year, as you know, we had about $10,000 we generated for some so we don't have to put perimeter walls and things of that nature. So this just really kind of gives it to you. You know, $4.95 is our cap. As you can see right in here, 85 was the number that we passed on last year. In my estimation, and I think this is something that the 5 of us have talked about in the board, you know, it's very evident in our mind that Thornwood really needs to make that leap into almost $100 increase over where we are today. With that $100 increase, and then I think absolutely Colette says that $100 is really a minimum number. In my mind, in the mind that we talk about, I've got a different number in my mind, but for the meeting that we've agreed to, we're talking about a $100 increase for today. That really probably gives you the availability of that $50 to meet your current expenses, and that other $50 gives you the opportunity to put money away, to grow your reserve funds, and it also gives you the opportunity to improve the Thornwood areas. And whether those improvements are, you know, things around the clubhouse, improved common areas, there are new entrances, there are expanded entrances, there are more seasonal plantings, it's improvement in the green space, whatever the neighborhood wants that to be. And by neighborhood, I mean you, the residents. I don't mean the 5 people that run the board, whether it's today or tomorrow or 5 years from now. It's the residents that we talk about. It gives the residents the opportunity. And $50 across, you know, 400 homes is a significant number for us. It really is. And if you can do that 2, 3, 4, 5 years running, you know, all of a sudden, you know, now you've got this cushion of cash. And again, I've only been here about 7 years now, and it's so funny when you go to the annual meetings, talk about people, well, we used to have $300,000 or $400,000 in reserves, and you know, says, oh, well, we've had more than that, we've had less than that. You know, the number that comes to my mind when I first moved in the neighborhood is that I think there was a reserve of about $200,000. And that number might be wrong, but I remember it certainly being a lot more significant. Where we are today, if we didn't spend any money at all, we'd have about $70,000 in reserves. So it's continued, and it's dwindled down for, I believe, for all valid reasons. I mean, there are expenses that have come about. Clearly, the biggest one was the increased cost in gas for a number of years. And you'll see some of that here as we kind of come into our second chart. They use the wrong button. You'll kind of see some of that here in just a second. This breaks down really your 4 major expenses: trash, security, water, electricity. Water and electricity, we've actually made some changes to last year and this year in terms of how we're breaking that out. We're getting a lot more detail so we can understand where our water and where our electricity is going to. In previous years, really starting with 2007 to 2010, it was just lumped into a general utility expense, and it was really hard to identify where certain water expenses were coming from. More importantly, by breaking it out the way we have, if there's a leak, we can identify it a lot better, quicker, and certainly get on top of it. Surely we get the water bills from the city, and we get 13 different water bills from the city for each of the meters that we have coming through. And clearly, if there's a spike there, we can find it and we see it. And our accounting company is very good about that. You know, it's like, hey, Todd, you know, the water bill was $800 at this meter. You may want to check it out. And sure enough, it is. We can go back and get that money from the city. We prove it's a leak once we get it repaired and things of that nature. And any of you've had to go through that process at your house, you know exactly what that can be like. The city will give you money back, but you got to do all the work and you got to prove it to be able to do that. So that's one of the things that we've done. We also streamlined our electric providers a couple of years ago, and we renewed with JEXA. So instead of having 2 or 3 different electric providers, we have one. I think we're paying about 9.2, which was probably about the best we could get last year when we renewed that contract.
You know that the Culpeppers sell the power.
That's who we went through then, was the Culpeppers, yeah. And he used to work with a friend of mine who's in the electric business as well. And so Chris has been real helpful with that the last couple of years. And Chris spent a lot of time. I sent him about 45 pages of bills. He got it all together and consolidated it for us. About 9.2, I think, is where we came out. You know, there are some things that we could do to reduce our electric bill, and it would take a lot of work and a lot of effort. You know, you can move your electric bill around during the peak summer months. Last year, I changed my electric provider every 25 days last year. I saved over $2,000 in my house. But I spent a lot of time with a lot of hassle having to remember to do that. But it was worth it to me. Difficult to do that for a neighborhood association, but it's certainly an option if there's a volunteer who wants to help coordinate that.
Well, I follow the natural gas price, which is by far one of the cheapest ways to follow it. It's
Okay.
on Reliant Power Tracker, and I have probably one, besides the Culpeper, it's one of the lowest bills. You know, because it just follows the prop month of the gas price.
Yeah.
And so it's relatively inexpensive. Our most expensive bill last year, I don't think we ever had a bill that was 300.
That's good.
But we have a good AC system too. So
Right,
it
makes a big difference. That one room that's not energy efficient, and have 2 air conditioners that are not energy efficient, that kills me right there. So.
I think there's one thing, pause back on the slide that placed the previous one. It was the notable trash reduction from 2010 to 2011. So it drops here. That's why last year's special assessment, I think, was lower than it should be. And we're receiving the benefits of that this year, too.
Right, absolutely, that's right. This gives you a percentage breakdown of how the 4 major, and this is kind of what we refer to as the Thornwood index, if you will. When we look at trash, electricity, security, and water, specifically trash and security, as those are the 2 largest pieces. And you can see right here between trash and security, you know, that's just over, you know, almost 50%, a little over 50% of our overall budget and things of that nature. And what Mike's talking about here, when you look at trash, in 2010, we were under contract with Waste Management, and we moved to rural disposal, and we had a significant savings in trash. And that, in whole numbers, it was about $15,000 is what we were able to get there in savings. And these 3 numbers right here, you can see, starting in 2007, it comes up, this is when your fuel started to go up, and all your surcharges started getting passed along. And the previous board had gotten into a 3-year contract with Waste Management at that time, or Republic Waste, which was a good thing to do. And then all of a sudden, everything just went whoosh, because they locked us into a really good price. But due to the circumstances of the economy, everything got passed on. Not only what got passed on there were some security increases that got passed on here as well, even though it came down in 2007, and I can't really tell you why it came down, just those are the numbers I have. But you can see that we stayed steady here in 2008 and 9, and we came up here in 2010. We really stayed steady between these 2 years, and we had a little bit of increase right there. We've avoided, you know, some neighborhoods have seen an increase in their constable patrol as much as 7%, and those are area neighborhoods. From what I understand, your fees coming from the precincts are pretty much a flat fee, but some of the neighborhoods do have a little bit more geographic space that they have to cover. I've tried to make that correlation. Is that why they had maybe such a large increase and we didn't? I don't know. It's just my own little hypothesis, if you will. I think they like us at Precinct 5. We're nice to their people, and we try to keep that relationship alive. So, but you can really see these are some things that you know, how everything breaks down on a percentage basis. Again, you know, you've got your other, you know, it covers a lot of things. It covers your pool repairs, your pool maintenance. Pool maintenance is about $20K a year. It's about 10% of our overall budget. That's just cleaning the pools, making sure there's chlorine, they stay clean, things of that nature. And we've been lucky. We've held to that number for probably 3 years now, and that was negotiated by some of the previous boards as well. We shopped it around this year, and the number that we have is about $4,000 less than 3 other companies that we talked to. You know, we're confident with the service that we have. I think there's always room for improvements on that, and we talked a little bit about with Greater Houston Pool Management about that this year. So they're kind of on notice about some things, but by and large, they do a good job. They don't do a bad enough job. And the things that they did screw up on last year were pointed out to them, and they got on it and took care of it. So that's definitely good news there. But so again, this really, I hope, helps you understand about where some things are on a percentage basis. as it's distributed. Again, that's across 100% of our expenses and things of that nature. Let's move on.
Yeah, I just one question on this slide, Todd. The other, is that everything else?
Everything else.
So, okay, this is like each one of these showing 100% of our expenses.
Right, absolutely.
And which one's the other on here? 'Cause I can't.
It's the small, this is the big brown one right here.
The big brown
Oh,
one.
The
Yeah.
tall
You have to
brown,
get numbers.
the tall brown one that's bigger than all the rest.
Right.
That's the, I thought it was the.
No,
No, your red one is going to be water.
that's the third one?
It's the third, yeah, see, so it goes trash, security, water, electricity, and then other.
All right, well, I'm confused,
We have
because
a big
over on
other.
this one,
Yeah,
It looks like.
oh, I see, this is other.
Right up at the top.
All right.
yeah. Other is the brown.
That's a
I
stacked
see the
graph.
colors.
That just shows it to you from a, this just kind of gives you your revenue, so.
It's left to right, bottom to
Trash,
top.
security, water.
Okay.
It's really interesting.
One of the things I can do is for you.
Well, don't worry about it, I
It's
got
a
it.
PDF.
The colorblind guy can take directions.
Yeah, when I was looking at this before, I thought that was the water.
Well, no, I was confused too, you guys.
No, I'm with you. One of the things.
What is the lighting in here? It kind of looks.
Go back one slide, Bob, I'll show you something. So when you look here at your trash in 2012, and trash is on a net basis because we do get a reimbursement from the city. And that reimbursement can vary from year to year in terms of how much they give us. Again, that reimbursement from the city is an optional participation by the city. They can discontinue that at any time. So our net garbage bill for this year is projected to be about $46,000. The last year it was $47,000, and the year before it was $63,000. I don't really know why there was such a decrease from the city, or if they're giving us more money back. I'm not really sure, but I think what you're seeing here is because we're spending less money on a per household basis than what we spent right there. So I'm sure there was no change in the city. When you look here at your security, this is projected at $78,000 this year, $73,000 last year. It's just over $70K last year, and you had about 63 in 2008, and just over 60,000 in 2007. The waters continue to go up. We're projected about $14,000 this year for water. Now, if you remember last year, there's a new fee that came on board that was passed by the city, due to the drainage fee. So clearly, we went from about $10,600 here to about $15,282 here. So we had a big increase there. So one of the things that we have done is we are looking to try to manage the water a little bit better. We are spending some money putting in. One of the things that Texas Tropical Plains is going to do for us is they're going to manage our sprinkler system for us. So that if something's getting too much water, they can go and adjust it. If something's broken, they can fix it. So we don't have to worry about getting everybody out here and having something just run for 2 or 3 days, things of that nature. We're putting in some of the rain sensors weren't working correctly, so we spent some money to get those rain sensors replaced. I'm not convinced that rain sensor is 100% accurate, but it's a start and it's a help to try to manage some things there. And then your other consists of anything from your pool maintenance, pool repair, utilities, to water for a general meeting or something like that. I mean, it's a whole host of things that we just kind of lumped in there. So that's how that works out right there. That was my last slide, right? So when you look there at the percentage of things, it's really kind of what breaks that down. And that just really is kind of an understanding. So, if everything's remained the same based on some things that we're looking to do, repair and things of that nature, and from a revenue income perspective, if you will, we would probably be about $10,000 in the red this year. If you just look at it from a very black and white standpoint of where we are. And some of those things that we're looking to spend to improve the facility with Thornwood, do we have to do them? The answer is no, we don't have to. But it's just got to get done. I mean, it really does. If you look at the neighborhoods around us, I think you'll see that people are growing, they're doing things within their neighborhoods. And it's not an issue about whether we need to keep up. It's just literally about taking the pride in what we have and growing what we have. Houses are not staying on the market long in our neighborhood as a whole. They're moving. The house across the street from me went on the market for $379K and was offered in 3 days. And they had an inspection out there within the first week, which was great for me. I was glad to hear that. And in talking to some of the realtors, there are not a lot of houses for sale in Thornwood as a whole, which is good news. So clearly our homes are going up in value. I don't know that they're going up in direct relation to some of the other neighborhoods around us. I don't know that there's a lot that we can do to control that. But the good news is that they're going up, and there are things that we can do to get them to go up. And obviously, part of that is revising our covenants to allow us to give us that extra financial need to have a sound financial base, and then be able to make improvements as needed. No question about that. Absolutely. So, if there are any questions about the expenses and things of that nature, we'll be happy to talk about them, address them, show them to you, whatever you like. And if not, we can actually take a couple-minute break if you'd like to grab some water in the back, and then we'll move on to some of the other topics.
Do you want to cover police and security?
I can.
That's the agenda.
I didn't know if we wanted to take a break.
No, we want the break.
We were going
Just
to do
before
pools and swim, security, and then we were going to do budget, and that was going to segue us into
So one of the things about the pools, swim team starts tomorrow. So we'll be down there swimming. We're very excited to be swimming. You know anybody who wants to swim? Let them know. Sign up. Are y'all all signed up over there?
We're not age ready.
4?
He just
a
turned
week ago.
4. I mean, like a week today. He just would like to get his eyes wet. He's not our swimmer. Charlie, he did swim lessons. He'll be our swimmer.
Okay.
We got
Logan's ready to go.
So people are excited about, there's been a lot of discussion about getting the swim team up and going. We worked through a few hurdles. Clearly I think there's going to be a change in the leadership of the swim team over the next year or so. Chuck Lucas has done a great job, and I think he's just ready to pass that on. So if there's anybody out there who wants to be the swim team director, please let us know. I think Chuck will be happy to pass that over.
Is that a volunteer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is a high-paid volunteer job. The lower cost of
But Chuck has agreed to do it again this year.
He's doing it this year, absolutely. And
reluctantly, I think.
I think there's some reluctance, yes.
He didn't want to. I mean, at the end of
Yeah,
last
he
year,
said
his
last year
intention
he
was
was done.
to pass it on. But
We gave Chuck the option to pass it on, and he decided that he wanted to be involved and do it. So he's been presented several opportunities. However, Chuck did say that he is looking for more parental assistance this year. We'll see how that goes. Chuck is very unique in how he likes things done, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. So we'll just see how it goes. But I think this is the year for us to find some people who are willing to try to take that leadership role. And it's very clear that we're not going to do it with one person. There are many parents who said, I'll be happy to do this or this and this. So we're going to find here a few people to do that. Pools will open Sunday. And are we staffing 2 pools for
Saturdays. There's opening Saturday, and we're doing sign up here.
Everything is here.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I can't remember saying. Because I know Ken Einhorn or his wife wanted to know what Pennsylvania is going to be here.
Be here all day. Yeah.
All day.
On Saturday.
On Saturday, all day. Yeah. So for pool sign up, we'll be here all day Saturday. If you would rather, you can also sign up online. We have a 100% paperless process now, so you can pay online with your credit card, and you don't even have to, mail in the paperwork or anything anymore. So.
And it's $80.
It's very convenient. It's $80. If you know anybody outside of Thornwood that's interested in the pool membership, that's $200 for them. And we'd love to get some more of those. And then there's a crawfish boil after sign-up day from 5 to 9, and that's free for anybody that wants to RSVP.
And we do have one family outside the neighborhood that has signed up for the Friends of Thornwood.
Yes.
$200. So, which is a bargain by neighborhood standards. That's a bargain. Be able to swing here for $200. And they were a referral from, so they have some friends that live in the neighborhood, is how that came about, so I was pretty excited about that. We
So
were,
how many memberships?
well,
For just one?
we just have one that from someone outside the neighborhood currently,
Just
right?
one outside.
Right.
Which is a 100% increase from last year.
Oh, really? We didn't have any last year?
I know we had
Okay.
one last year.
We did.
Tom, who works at Bicycle World,
Yeah.
yeah, he was a Friends of Thornwood
Okay.
last year.
So we are.
Okay.
Right, so we currently do not have it that long, so we're not in.
Right, well, and
That's
maybe.
okay.
But has anybody talked to him yet?
Yeah, sign it back
Make sure Bike
I'll go
World's still
talk to
friends
him.
of Thornwood.
And if for whatever reason we think there's going to be a run on those, it will be capped. We assure you. We're not going to let hundreds of people come and get $200.
Right now, we don't have that problem.
Right now.
But, you know,
Don't have that
I mean, we, over the years, since I've been here, I've gotten a number of inquiries from people just in general, like, you know, you have X amount of memberships, and we haven't really until last year. I've been told in years past that Thornwood did it years ago being, I think, like maybe 10 or 15, 20 years ago or something, I don't know. But they're, you know, the going rate for a guest membership in a neighborhood pool, from what I gathered last year, was a minimum of $350. I don't know how many, if they had 2 people or 22 people or 220 people. I have no idea. I never asked those questions. That was the going rate for previous years. We upgraded, so we replaced all the plumbing over at the Thorn Branch Pool, which is a blessing for me. I'm very excited about that. And so I'll be over here this week scouring those and getting them ready. As well as our pool company's over there doing some stuff tonight as well for that sort of thing. And the pools get cleaned every week. I should say the bathrooms get cleaned every week. That's something that that's part of that covers, the pool ownership covers that as well. We did some upgraded plumbing over here on 2 as well. We have working showers at both pools now. So when you get out of the pool, if you want to literally bring your shampoo down here, shower your child, and you be done. I intend to do it. Believe me, it's the best thing you can do during the summer. Do is swim for 2 hours. Shower in here, put the James on, take them off. Go to bed.
So put up a curtain.
It's between you and your child. That's how that works. This is an old school shower. It's got a pull the handle down and it'll rain on you outside, which will be fine. And then the 2 showers over at Thorn Branch, they were pre-existing and got all that plumbing corrected, so now that it actually physically works correctly. So that would be good news there. From a pool standpoint, we just put a new pump motor in over here. You probably saw
And it wasn't a motor. They didn't put a motor into that.
Oh, yeah, they did $753.24 worth.
He told me it was just the future ring or something.
Apparently they changed their mind. We're paying a bill for $1,000, $150 for labor.
That's that other
Part
fee.
motor.
Other.
Copy that.
Yeah, it can jump up pretty quick.
So that's, you know, for the pool, we've got new pool furniture on the way.
Tables and chairs.
Part of it's here, as you can see, so we'll have assembly party, absolutely. So we have essentially an 11-foot canopy umbrella that will cover a portion of the kiddie pool, which would be nice to be able to do that. We'll have one over here also that will get positioned, probably in one of the corners. I think that's to kind of be determined.
We're gonna put there on the steps,
So we're gonna
because
put
that's
those
where the basic.
Shade the steps where the moms
Right,
go.
okay.
That's kind of our
That would be
equivalent of the big pool.
Just keep in mind that once that thing is filled with 300 pounds worth of sand, it's not
Not
going to be
moving
easy
it.
to move, which is what it'll take. So we are still looking at kind of some permanent coverage. You know, these umbrellas will last us, even if we take them out and decide to get some sort of permanent cover for the kiddie pool 2-3 years down the road, or permanent coverage here. They'll be able to use on the deck very easily for lounge areas. From what I understand, the tables that are coming will seat 8. So we've got 32 random chairs and 4 tables coming for that like that. So the pool furniture project is going to be a multi-year project with the intent is to have it all matching at a single pool. Again, that goes back to one of those expenses. The money is there for us to be able to go and do it. a hard thing to swallow when you spend that kind of cash, which is nice. And then knowing you're taking that out of your reserves, and so we try to find that happy medium. And these people right here will tell you that I made it very difficult to get that decision along. Michelle will tell you that as well. And when we started out our pool furniture project, I don't think any of us thought that we deserve the nice type of pool furniture that we're going to get as residents. We
But
did.
we wanted to be nicer than
for
last
yourself.
versus cheaper.
I don't think we talked about it. When we sat down and talked about it, we never once really kind of threw that number out. And it's going to be a well-worth investment that's being made. And I firmly believe that when word gets out, the furniture, once it's up here and everybody sees it, I think you'll see a lot more people join the pool. I really do. I think we should be able to get at least 10 extra memberships, which would go a long way. It's $800, but $800. $800 is a lot of money for a local neighborhood.
Isn't that sad?
It is, but it's a significant number. And if things go well, we are committed to trying to fulfill all that. So those are some things from the pool right in there. Security-wise.
One more thing on the pools that we're going to be doing is we're planning to, when we get our access control figured out, open up access to the clubhouse so that people who are using the pool here will be able to come in here. We got a ping pong table that was donated by Dan Houston. Might get some more comfortable furniture in here and kind of make this like a little rec center place for people to hang out or cool off or watch a movie on the projector or whatever they want to do.
We do have plans for a screen to be accessible to drop down, and plans to mount the projector. Although now that the band has been mounted with projectors, it's just go.
Well, I just go.
You're gonna put it down.
Well, this thing, I mean, see how close it is.
So anybody who wants to, if somebody's got an extra screen, movie screen that they don't want, we'd be happy to take it. Or a 60-inch plastic TV. So that's good news there. From a security standpoint, by and large, things are good in our neighborhood. They remain good in our neighborhood. About 30 days ago, there was a little problem up and down Perthshire that was thwarted by a resident who was paying attention. And when Precinct 5 rolled up, the kids ran and stuff like that. There's a conflicting story I'm trying to get tracked down between HPD and Precinct 5 right now. So when we came in, Colette and Jennifer there were talking about there was a dead body found off Eldridge. Going further south on Eldridge, past Briar Forest, you said?
No, it's Enclave Parkway,
Enclave
where
Parkway.
Cafe Run Onion used to be.
So the first body,
Right
Bass
behind.
Memorial.
Yeah.
When you said it was found in a car.
In a car.
And this is a story that was
KPR,
But this
KPRC
is
is on
an
the
alley behind a bar. This is not like a breaking and entering, thing. This is.
So it's a parking lot.
Parking lot. Parking lot.
Yeah.
There's
I mean, is
But it was
foul
on
play
KPRC.
suspected or did the guy just die in his car?
No.
No, he was a shooting. I mean, he was shot to death.
Oh.
So they don't know, I think it said they didn't know if he was a suicide or they suspect foul play.
And so chances are good City of Houston probably got that call, so Precinct 5, they won't necessarily have a report of it. They do go and get that City of Houston. What you find out is that City of Houston shares information with no one. However, Precinct 5, they share their information with the city. And so if Precinct 5 wants something, they have to go to the city. And the city's not really always willing to just chunk it out there to them. They got to go and get it. It sounds a bit absurd, I agree. It is what it is, and we work with it. Saturday, the Shell station up here at Pinestaff, about 11 o'clock was held up. And so I'll be very detailed about this. My wife was there, and I think I pointed at her also. So, it was about 11 o'clock.
In the morning.
Which one's that?
You know the Shell station across the street from Chuck E. Cheese?
Yeah.
By La Hacienda? Okay. So, two young black males wearing hoodies with masks went into the Shell station. And the gentleman that works behind there's an older gentleman. He's been there for about a year now. I know exactly who he is. I know the guys that own that Shell station. I've been going there for about 6 or 7 years to get gas. The kids put the gun to his head.
Oh my God.
And he open the cash register and, and at some point, there's an office door right behind the cash register, and that office door, at some point when the kids went to get the money out of there, he was able to jump into that closet door and lock himself in the office and be somewhat protected. As the story goes, the officer from HPD said that there is a rash of these crimes going on, and they typically find these clerks shot in the head. I don't really put a lot of credence into that statement because if that were the case in our area, we would have heard that from Precinct 5, and we've not heard that. So I am trying to follow up on that and try to figure out something there. So as the two kids, and by kids, my wife believes middle school, high school age by kids. Okay? I mean that by kids, by middle school, high school age by kids is what she means. They came running out, and she was sitting behind a car waiting to go through the car wash, and she was watching them go along, and the kid stopped and pointed his gun at her. She said he was about 4 or 5 feet away. So they ran across the parking lot. They went behind the Goodyear. They, again, held their gun out to all the people there at the Goodyear. And they just literally vanished into thin air. So at some point, behind Goodyear and Los Tios, they went through those bushes.
Los Tios.
Or Nephis, I'm sorry, Nephis. Yeah, Nephis. At some point, they, went through the bushes, jumped the fence, ran around the fence. They literally just vanished into thin air because there was a guy at the Shell station who chased them on foot. Just for whatever reason, he chased them on foot. Yeah, and they just literally vanished into thin air. So it's very apparent that it's likely they could live in the apartment complexes, either right there by Nottingham.
All they've got to do is dump the masks and the hoodies.
Right.
And they're just kids on the street.
And they're just kids on the street. That's correct. So
I guess if they had any video, that was not helpful.
I've not heard anything about that. I don't know that. I mean, I don't know why Goodyear would have video behind their store.
No, I'm talking about the
They do have video. I mean, they're on film right there.
But their faces were
Their faces were covered and they had a mask on. So it's very clear. In my estimation, it's probably the kids' first effort to try to do something like that.
Yeah, because running down the street with a gun in your hand,
Right.
real dumb.
Right.
Lots of people are going to get upset about that.
That or they're being put up to it.
There could be a number of things, right? Was the gun real? Was it fake? And my wife described the gun to the officer as being square, and the HP officer is, being overwhelmed and consoling that he was. Pretty much kind of a smart ass, my wife, about it. I mean, she was clearly shaken. I mean, she's still shaken about it 2 days later. She ran on through up. So, and for whatever reason, I mean, she didn't have Avery in the car with her. She dropped Avery off at a friend's house. So, the clerk was clearly shaken up by it. There's no question about that. So just be mindful of that. And as I get more information about it, we'll send that out to the residents.
When did this happen?
11 o'clock. I got
What day?
Saturday.
Saturday.
I mean, I got a phone call from my wife at 11:02 Saturday, and so it happened, between 10:45 and 11:02, something like that. So there's a good chance it'll happen again. It'll probably happen sooner before later, things of that nature. But those are the only two significant, crimes that have occurred that I'm aware of in the last, month. And because normally if there's something significant, we'll know something about it pretty quick on Precinct 5. On a good note about security, we're getting a lot of visibility on a real regular basis.
Yes.
There's no question about that because they're here during the day, and I think that's working out for us.
At night as well?
We get the overflow from Westchester. Absolutely, we're getting them in the evening, and they're spending a lot. I'm seeing them a lot of times on Saturdays, Fridays and Saturdays. The guy from Westchester is here. So, because for a while Westchester didn't have patrol at all because an officer went on Nottingham Oaks Trail, which is right there by St. John Vianney, up and down that road in the morning. He's there.
I see him every Tuesday.
And I think he's just there. He's not there trying to keep people from speeding or anything like that. I think he's just there because they have had problems in that apartment complex before. So And the last piece on security about that is that the apartment complex, right there by Specs, that's adjacent to Derry Ashford, we got this information from Super Neighborhoods, in the next 12 months is gonna be torn down and replaced with
The
some
one that's
high-end-
behind, that runs from Goodwill all the way to Specs, right?
Yeah,
That
Yeah.
one?
that one right there.
What's gonna happen?
It's gonna be torn down, in the next 9 to 12 months and replaced with high-end apartment. They were apartments, not townhomes.
I don't know if they're, but it's like luxury.
But big on
high-end.
luxury, very similar to probably some of the stuff that you've seen up and down Eldridge, or some of the other luxury pieces right over here. And the builder, according to the Super Neighborhoods message, is going to cater to the energy corridor folks. So, you know,
Better neighbors.
your energy corridor folks, I mean, I'm sure their median income is upwards of 60 or 70K. I would think, if not on an individual basis, a married basis, I'm sure it's probably closer, you know, to 130, 140 or something like that. So, very clear that they'll be nice pieces. So, well, clearly have a lot of construction in the area for a couple of years, but nonetheless, I certainly improved property values there. Yes?
Where was that, those apartments to be torn down?
So if you go up here if you go up, you know where Starbucks is?
Yes.
All right, so there's an apartment complex right behind that center where the Mag for Women is.
Well, it's got the Taco Bell and
Yeah.
the
Dairy
Goodwill
Ashford.
on Dairy
The
Ashford.
shoe hospital.
And then on the other end of that same complex is the Specs and the Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes, right, I know.
Okay. So that's nice to know that, who knows what that'll lead to for the other area, complexes, and for what it's worth. And
That's a step up for our neighbors.
No, it's great.
Fantastic.
I know that there is another office building slated for the energy corridor. I don't know when they're gonna start construction on that, if it's, it's gonna be soon?
Yeah, right over here at the corner of Eldridge and I-10. And there.
Oh, where the McDermott building used to be?
No, at the corner.
At the very corner, at the light.
Parcel there.
At the light.
There's a plan for 3 eventually to go in, but the first 20-story one is supposed to start soon.
Well, McDermott Engineering used to have a big facility there
But it's
15
further,
years ago.
it's further down.
It's further down, oh, yeah, okay. So
It's already miserable.
is it all part of that whole?
Well, no, wait, they've already made Eldridge wide enough to add another lane on each side. They're not even
No,
gonna
no, no,
have to tear
I'm
anything
just
out.
saying, like, they can't even fill the building that's right here,
Which building?
much less we need
Office
3 more
building?
buildings.
Office building.
You know, I think it's a.
You talking about Eldridge Place 3?
Yeah,
That's like 80%.
no, I look in that building at night and I see that it didn't.
It might be, it doesn't mean that they're moved in, but it might be the leases are
They're
committed
still doing
to.
the
They might
tenant
be,
improvement.
Right.
they could be, and that was, I did wanna, I was gonna bring that up in the meeting, though, like what we could do as a neighborhood to get them better on our side, to help be nice,
Sure,
kinder
so
to the neighborhood.
I can answer that. We've actually been working with them quite a bit. I don't know if you guys have been bothered, because you're on the other side of Bison by the trash dumpsters getting dumped at 1 in the morning.
Yep, I hear it every single time, the BAM!
Right, so we got a few complaints about that. I reached out to their building management, and they got it rescheduled. And from talking to Walt, who was the chief complainer that got in touch with me, he says they still do, it still occurs on rare occasions, but it's not like every
Well,
night.
and you know, it's not just the trash people, it's the deliveries of whatever is going on there, because
Right.
they're having construction, and like, literally, I can hear the trucks backing up.
Right, so
At 2 in the
here's
morning.
the deal with these buildings, when you have brand new buildings like that especially, or even with a pre-existing building, the tenants basically are just buying unfinished space, or renting unfinished space. And then they'll come in and do their, it's called TI, or tenant improvement. So, putting up all the walls and partitions and the cubicles and the lights they want and all that stuff, that's what's going on over there now.
Well, I hear
that
that.
only happens after the space has been leased.
But, I mean, I get all that, but the main issue I have is obviously the deliveries at the off hours, 1, and then 2, they leave their lights on, y'all, all night long. There's
Yeah, I
not
know.
a light to not be turned off. I mean,
That's a
literally, it's
construction
like,
site thing.
no, in the building.
I know,
So
well,
it's
they're
like
working inside
a
the building.
glowing-
Yeah.
Listen, when they move in, okay,
It's
these
so easy for you
problems
to
will
say
go
that,
away.
though, you're not looking
You don't
at it,
live
Bob,
there.
you know,
I do
and
live there, I
so,
can see those lights from my house.
not from your front window. You know, so I'm just saying, like, I've had conversations when they built the building with the superintendent, when I had an infant, and it was awful, and they worked all night, all day, I mean, all night, every day, 7 days a week to get that building up and going, to get the concrete dry for every freaking floor. And so, I don't see why we cannot establish a better relationship, because that superintendent, I had his cell phone number, and I called. Anytime that they were running that thing, it was 11 o'clock at night, I'm like, dude, you gotta shut it down.
Was he with the, building management, or was he?
No, it was the construction company.
The construction guy.
So
Okay,
that's what I'm saying, I know that we can some way get a better, you know, and it's just like the people that come out here and, you know, pull out in front and drive, you know, illegally, you know, I just feel like there's gotta be something that we can do, you know, to manage our relationship with them. And I'll be more than happy to get on board with that, to do it, to handle it myself.
Sure, so I have a relationship, we have a relationship with the building management there, and they're usually very helpful when something's brought to our attention. We'll work with them on it. Now, I mean, I can't.
Well, should I start documenting? Would that give them better
Yeah,
numbers?
absolutely, very helpful, because they're gonna ask you, when's it occurring?
Yeah.
And if you say, well, at 2 a.m., they're like, oh, my books don't show anything at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
You know, because they're gonna have a schedule of deliveries and work and things of that nature when people come on.
I can do that.
Here's
I
the
can
challenge,
definitely do
here's
that.
the challenge, okay? The building management, you know, may not have control over what
Sure.
those construction
Right.
contractors are doing. So, you know, we have to be reasonable in our expectations, okay? But at the
Why?
same time, pardon me?
Why should we
We
be
should be
reasonable?
unreasonable?
No, wait,
No, I'm
actually,
saying,
as a
like, I was-
negotiation point, she's right. It's actually okay to start out with, I wish you guys would just not run the lights and noise when I'm trying to keep my kids asleep. And that's a perfectly good opening negotiation position. You can't expect them to say, oh, right, we'll just shut everything down. But at least they know what you wish for. There's no reason not to just put it out front.
Right.
And know you won't get it.
Yeah, and I don't, to
I
my
mean, I'm
knowledge,
not
no
trying
one,
to, I'm
no one
not
has
asking
complained
us
about
to
that.
bully them or anything like that. I'm just asking for consideration. If
So
it's
let
for
me
your
tell you,
home,
Well, and there are certainly, you know, there are city ordinances that allow
100%.
certain work times and things of that nature. And by documenting things, you'll find out where they're falling in terms of those city ordinances. And obviously, if they're violating those, then they get fines. And those
Right.
fines are very serious at construction sites.
well, and
Very
that was
serious.
the issue when the building went up is, you know, the decibels of how loud they were being. And the thing was, is that all I found out from the city is I just needed to call 911. Well, then I just felt ridiculous. No, 911, because it was a
After
police
hours.
officer. They have to go out there to measure it. And then I didn't,
But they don't
I
have the
felt
decibels
silly to go
Yeah.
out to call them to, you know, to waste.
By the time
a
they got there, it would be.
It just was a mess, so that's why we went straight to the superintendent. My husband, I mean, Jason drove
And the
straight over there.
construction
You know, and he's
manager,
like, I have
perhaps?
a crazy wife, you know, who is breastfeeding in the middle
Kyle
of the
would
night.
have started it too.
This has to
Absolutely.
stop, you know, and that's, you know, just where we went from there. I mean, literally, I called the man 3 times on his cell phone, and he handled it. I'm not saying that that's the right way, but I'm just saying, like.
But you found someone who was willing to work with you. That was the key thing. And if he gave you his number, that tells you he's committed to trying to help you out. And if he accepted your call, I mean, he may have said things about you when he hung up, but he
Well,
took
he
your
was
call
very kind.
and he helped you. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
I'm just saying, like,
you're- absolutely.
I don't
And
want
there's
to
no
bully
reason.
anyone, but we
Yeah.
can, there's no reason we can't ask for things that we want. I ask for things that I want for my children every day, and they're 2 and 4. We can ask from adults what we want. They can tell us no, but there's nothing
They
wrong
can
with
meet us
asking.
halfway, but if
Yeah.
you ask for what you want, at least they have an idea where we're headed.
Yeah, I mean, we want to work with you.
And at least
One
you
thing
know the
that
concerns, so
confused
that's
me
good.
is, do they have no obligation other than, you know, the people that back up to this building and garage, all they have in between them is just a residential fence. And that to me kind of has always boggled my mind that there's not something more substantial, you know, to separate residents from a commercial
I'm not
parking
near smart
lot.
enough to know anything about
You
that.
know,
wish
I
you
don't
would've
know
thought
if
that.
I
they have
wish you
any
would've.
responsibility.
I know, I've
if,
seen in
you
some
know,
areas
I
where
don't know.
they built, you know, large fabric fences
Yeah.
around to be able to keep stuff from blowing over, falling over, something like that. I don't know how that came about, have no idea if that's something that you would, you know, literally probably have to pursue
There's
with
policies.
the building.
I'm sure.
It just seems to me like, you know, that might keep some noise out of our neighborhood,
I mean,
or keep
that
it
would be
safer, I don't know.
Threats of
Well, but
litigation,
you-
let's get on it.
It's not really working.
All right, let me, guys,
Yeah, okay, we got it, we get it. We're not gonna, first of all, we can't afford it.
I'm not
Sue
even,
any.
I just,
Yeah, they got
partitions.
floors of attorneys, right? you know,
Yeah.
sue us.
I'm not at all suggesting.
I can't imagine that.
But I'll be glad to start documenting.
Yeah,
You
if
know,
you
I'll be
can,
more
if you
than happy
can,
to do
you
that.
know, make it pretty specific, that'll help a lot.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, after you've got like a week's worth of, that, you know, let's take that to them and ask them, you know, what can they do about it?
Absolutely.
And all these discussions are in direct correlation to our property values. How, you know, buildings affect our community, it's gonna lower the property values if it's, you know, impeaching on our quality of life. The houses that back up to that are not gonna go for an inside, you know, and it's a vast difference between the perimeter and the inside of the neighborhood.
Well, certainly during construction, I'm not gonna buy a house
No,
that's
any realtor would tell you that.
No, just as it is.
Any
If
realtor
you
would
back
tell you
up
that.
to a building.
A commercial area.
Or an apartment.
So the
Right.
people who are on the perimeter, their property values are already affected by that relationship. So to try to keep it.
We didn't buy on Kimberly because of back to the apartment complex.
Right.
I did buy a Pershar because it made the price right.
Exactly.
So it is, absolutely.
But I don't think just because,
Do we know it's
you know, I don't know, I feel bad for
Looks
for the
great, doesn't
people on
it?
the perimeter. It seems like there should be something we should do to
I
help.
was looking at it.
I'm sorry.
I did.
So guys, one at a time, please.
All right.
Which one's was she talking about?
15203984333.
135?
Yeah.
That's sold.
Rocket sold.
It's sold to
A teacher.
a teacher at Spring Branch.
Yes.
And it's the family, they're moving in, it's gonna be a real house.
I think it looks great.
Yeah.
I think it looks
sold?
great.
All right, let's move on.
They
All right.
had signs on that door that they had not gotten permits for plumbing.
I saw the orange stickers. Is that what those were for?
The green ones, I thought, the green ones. But anyway,
Because when I came to your house the other day, I saw orange stickers on it.
Yeah, they're gone now, but then there was a white door that said, there's a, I went and looked yesterday, they have, it's a sticker that says for the inspector only.
Right.
You know, now, so.
Yep, moving right along.
All right, well, why don't we take a quick little break? It's about 8:15. I don't want to keep y'all here all night. I have no problem staying here all night. Everybody will sleep when I get home. So, but I don't need to keep y'all here all night. So we'll take a couple minute break. There's plenty of water and drinks. Help yourself to whatever's in the refrigerator. And I mean anything you want in the refrigerator, it's all yours. Mike did bring you cookies.
Yeah.
Camelback? Did you store this sold? Last week, about 2 years ago?
No, next door to her.
No, Keith and Marshall.
Yeah.
Well, it's a family, and she's a teacher.
Landscape architect.
Well, not the one that
She's at Thornwood.
Oh, Dan Houston's house?
Yeah, I have no idea who bought it.
Yeah, with the big pool in the back? Yeah. I don't know who bought it. I know they're closing on the 10th. Or the 11th, I'm not sure.
They closed me.
I talked to Rick the other day, and said, great family, and they have a 7-year-old boy, it's awesome. Everything's left on the market, it's pretty much just snatched up. Nothing, none of the ones,
I was changing from rental to ownership, and he had to have
That's what you want. I was thinking you was here, because it only. The one right here, you know, the 18 pictures.
Right. They all are.
After this thing, our house is not, they can raise. I'm just thinking,
I can't imagine this school where
No, but they're not set.
Yeah, it's not set.
They're never in a section.
So that will change everything. Yeah. We're going to from school, before you go, to make it different.
And we were like,
Yeah.
do they eat here? And then everything.
Well, used to be.
You know,
I cannot tell you.
Why are y'all looking at me? You're making me
Again this year?
Yeah.
And then like, everybody's rating, like,
Talk about that.
acceptable.
effective in schools.
Like, absolutely.
I mean, they weren't like, it wasn't like they were bouncing around, they were there all year, they were stable. But I wonder, this year it's an interesting
Okay, so what we have.
Everywhere last year, supposedly this was my first week, I read anything about it. But because they started a new tab, stars, because it's like right now, it's great, and then
Yeah, so you know what,
today.
it'll automatically go. No, it's Amazon, you know, and it's the credit card's already on file with them. The form will then come to you automatically in email, and you reply to the email, and update your merchant's contact info and stuff, and then you're done. It's as easy as that. So, yeah, just follow the link from one of those email blasts.
There's a guy who's,
Which is simplification of the situation.
Yeah, so I don't know what, but I'm sure that's not,
You know, the thing is, it's possible.
I'm ready.
that started. But you're the parents, or you have to take I mean, it's $20,000.
Oh, no!
Thank you for coming, Tom.
yeah, my wife's like, "Tell me how I ate." No idea.
Yeah, I can keep that.
Yeah, you should check out.
All right, we'll get started back up here. Because again, I don't want y'all to have to stay here all night. The board got together Saturday morning to finalize this while I was out doing more fun things, apparently. So, which worked, and so these guys worked really hard to really get all this together. But what you see here, these ideas for Thornwood, these are ideas that have been collected through previous town hall meetings, annual meetings, the Christmas wish list program that we had, just general discussion with residents around the neighborhood, and I think probably some even come via email, things of that nature. You know, one of the things that the block captains is something that we've had a couple people try to get going. I think the success has been marginal. It's really varied from street to street. But if there's anybody who would really like to try to get the block captain program really up and going.
I was just talking to Cynthia about that.
Okay, because it's very clear that I think their residents want it. There's no question about
But
that.
they don't want to do it.
It's just about finding someone to do it.
For the time.
Well, you have to have enough people
Right.
willing to contribute enough time on a regular basis, and you don't get people knocking on the door begging to do this.
Right, absolutely. The cameras are something that that conversation got started last year. We've really invested into that quite a bit. The board's committed to spending the money to get those in. About 8 cameras is what we can put in. It's going to be a combination of board effort and residents to be able to utilize. Technology is one of the things we're able to do by piggybacking on somebody's Wi-Fi to be able to get that. We have many options in terms of how we can display that information out, make it available. I don't think initially we're going to do that. It's really just something to capture. There is a big demand. People do want to be able to see the neighborhood online. We've had a lot of inquiries about when we do that. A little bit more intricate, a little more complicated to do that, but it's certainly on our wish list to be able to do. And I don't know that, I'm going to tell you that that's a this year project for sure. Might be a little over ambitious to say that we could get it done by end of summer, but I know we want sooner before later.
These colors are a little bit off, so that, let's say cameras purchased, that's actually green, which you really can't tell, so that means it's something we've already done, accomplished. And then the blue is kind of one of the things we're actively working, still, it's on the discussion list.
Where's the trial location?
Is that a secret?
No, it's not a secret. It's going to be here, actually. We're going to have a camera basically right out here by the fence, but inside the pool, aimed down Turkey Creek Drive into the neighborhood. And it'll be good view for not only seeing who's coming in and out of the pool, but also just to catch all the cars that are coming and going. So that's our trial installation.
The sharing of the constable with Westchester's, that's something we really kind of fell back into, only because Westchesterville doesn't have a really good relationship with the Westchester neighborhood over there. So they're piggybacking on our contract, if you will, and they're paying those fees. We're not paying them. But it does give us a little increased time, some extra time with the constables here in our neighborhood. So which is good news, there's no question about that. Streetlights, we had a couple ladies spent a lot of time looking into putting streetlights in the neighborhood. It's a great idea. It is a great idea. But once you commit to the city that you want a 60-foot street light in your neighborhood, it's there and it's staying.
Or you don't even commit that you want one, you just say, come look at our neighborhood. Because
Yeah.
I called and you just say, come look at our neighborhood. And if they come, they decide where it goes and it goes up. There's no like, well, I don't really want it in front of my house. Can you put it in front of Bob's house instead of my house? They're going to be like, no, this is where it's going. It's going up next week. You're done.
It goes.
So we decided not to follow through with that and just have people's
But
lights put up.
one of the things that came as a result of the work that the ladies did on that is that we do have a gas lamp technician, if you will. And we're working on trying to put a program together so if somebody wanted to put a gas or electric lamp in new, to be able to do that and get some contact information, try to do that as a neighborhood-wide thing. And I mean, there might be a lot of residents who want to spend $500 to put a lamp in their front yard. They just don't know where to go, who to call, or what to do, something like that. So we did have some good information that came out of that right there.
And there's actually a component of this being able to tell them, it's just the restrictions are.
Right, absolutely.
And so the deed restriction says if you have one, it has to be working, but you're not required to have one.
Well, it doesn't say that you're not required to have one, but it doesn't say that you are required to have one.
Okay.
What it says is if there is an existing lamp, it has to be working. But if there isn't a post lamp, it doesn't have to be working. And the other potential loophole is it says a post lamp on your lot, but in reality, all the post lamps are not on your lot, they're in the right of way, so we really have no take on that.
No, I was just wondering.
They're in the limit of the law. They're not in the right of way.
They're in the right of way.
They're actually in the right of way.
Yeah, but look at your water meter and look at where your post light is.
Mine's 12 inches off the curb.
Oh, but mine's pretty far back.
Mine's back.
I saw the ones further back.
Barely inside. But there's some other ones we saw that
Further back.
We're not
they're in the right of way,
consistent.
right.
No, but it's okay. I would have been surprised that the gas light was in the right of way because I wouldn't think the city would want it in the
Well,
right of way.
when I lived on Kimberly, it definitely was. It was like 2 feet from the mailbox. It was just right there.
Wow.
So is that something we could update the deed restrictions to make it
Yeah.
that tighter?
Yeah, we'll get that.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think Bob made a note coming down this document how a little bit about that works. We've got the perimeter fund, or the perimeter walls. Those funds are set aside, and we as the board are committed to keeping those funds available for our perimeter fences, entrances, and things of that nature. And, we may spend the full 10K this year. We may only spend half of it, but it will continue to roll over. And it's our current opinion that, we will look to the residents to re-up for another $10,000 for 2013 as well, and just continue to build on that fund going forward so that we can be prepared in the event something does occur. And again, as you saw, you've got 3 feet of fencing here to replace 3 sections of fencing. It's about 24 feet. You're talking $800 to $1,000 a section, so it's not cheap by any means to be able to do that. And certainly we would encourage, future boards to continue on with that as well.
Is the fence at the end of your little cul-de-sac that faces Eldridge, is that our fence? Because that thing is like.
Wait, that's down at the bottom, we're not there yet.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll get to it.
that one's an interesting story.
That one's
And then
very
I have another question. You said to continue doing the special assessment for the walls.
Continue contributing to the.
Right, but if we added $100, and so instead of it being $4.95, it became $5.95 or $5.85.
I think you could do away with that, sure,
Okay,
absolutely.
yes, so that would
Absolutely.
do away with.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah,
I wouldn't say will or won't. It's something to be decided before
Okay,
the
so that
annual.
doesn't necessarily.
Future boards
Right.
will have their own opinions.
Well, or, but I mean, it's something that, I mean, we'll go through the same deal again this year and say, do we want to do anything for special assessments? Raising the base assessment is really just
And catch up.
playing catch-up so that we have enough money to run everything that we have without going bankrupt. Special assessments are for getting new things.
It should be.
Right,
Yeah,
that's how it's supposed
Yeah.
to be. I mean, we've always had these budget gap assessments, which actually,
It's a good way to describe it.
that's what they are.
Absolutely, it's a good way to describe it.
The money's really not going to anything.
Yeah, I think, in an ideal world, we would have this dollar out there that would pay all our bills, would let us set amount of money for a rainy day. It would allow everybody to swim year-round without any type of membership fees and things of that nature. Wouldn't have to have special assessments to build things or things, it's not a big number for our neighborhood by any means, but I don't think realistically speaking, we could go from here to way up here. Our neighborhood is not geared that way. This is something we have to address incrementally. And that $100 is kind of that first step to doing that. And I think I believe that if we make that jump at $100, I believe within 4 or 5 years, you'll start seeing significant improvements in the neighborhood. There's no doubt in my mind about it. This is an idea of some of the estimates that we got back from brick restoration. Building entrance markers, if you will, as a generic term, as a general term, to really better define our neighborhoods where they're not defined. And that's clearly right down here, and then at Perthshire or Laurelwood. And that's just really about defining. And clearly what gets built there would clearly be a starting piece. It would be set up in such a fashion that we could add to it to make it grander. There's no question about that. We want to do whatever we can. So we don't have to tear anything down and rebuild those types of things there. These are some of the other estimates that we had just to repair brick walls around, and that was one of the questions that we asked. Is it cheaper to fix it or cheaper to let it fall? It's like, maybe the same amount of time and money is what the guy said. So what you see in terms of things falling, again, is property being damaged and things of that nature.
Todd, does that mean that the preventative maintenance cost is actually a rebuild cost of those features?
It's about just squeezing mortar into a lot of the bricks that are there.
Or cracked bricks, and I don't think it's entirely as cheap to let it fall. Certainly along Dairy Ashford, there's bricks where there's big giant cracks that run through the middle of the panel.
Yeah.
And chisel out those broken bricks and slide them in.
So are we not talking about putting in footings?
And in this particular case, you're not on some repairs.
Those were just basic repairs. The goal was not to make them last another 40 years, just to try to get another 10 years.
Just to get another 10 years.
Right,
whatever.
right, absolutely.
And stabilize them.
Because I rented a house in Kimberly, where the wall has fallen twice.
Yeah.
Fortunately, as a renter, that wasn't my problem, but I heard the landlady scream a lot. Because, every time those bricks fell down, she had to pile them all back up again. You can't match them. You can't go buy more like that. You have to use the same bricks. So she has these guys out there going chip, 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 chip.
That's very you can see right here, this is the wall that we talked about right here. It's $2,600. Get that taken care of. With a retaining wall right off of Kimberly, that's got to be rebuilt. Number one, it just looks bad, but number two, we got to do something before it just gets worse. It's really the best thing to do that. I've seen this wooden fence on Eldridge a long, long time. Probably y'all seen it all longer than I have. There's no question about that.
We've all got to look at it now.
So what happened?
Now they cut all the bushes off, but you can really see it. Last year, the license was covered.
That I guess I haven't noticed.
Yeah, it's all the elevators.
No, my favorite part is that
Well,
AT&T
it's Bougainvillea.
is actually using that as support structure for cables rather than putting in pylons.
You know, so it sounds like Bob is
So they
trying to figure
own
out
it.
who owns that, right?
Wouldn't that be nice if AT&T owned the water?
Right, so the deal with that fence is that, let's see, the owner at 602 Thistlewood has basically annexed part of the city's land and turned that into their side yard. And this is also the owner who has sent us a request to get some help fixing the fence. So obviously we can't fix a fence that's not on our land.
That would be improper, isn't it?
That would be improper. We could build a new fence that goes along the line, but I think that would probably be
Not what they
not
want.
what they want. So what I'm working on is,
Do they need something to keep their farm animals better
Well-
stabilized? I'm just saying.
I'm not gonna touch that. But I'm gonna reach out to Oliver Pennington's office and see if we can get permission from the city essentially to do some improvements on that land.
To annex it properly.
I.e. a new fence, and then put in a fence that actually, you know, makes Thornwood look better. We might be able to get Energy Corridor to kick in some because, you know, Eldridge is like, I mean, that is the Energy Corridor.
Main Street.
And, you know, everything looks great with new library, new office buildings, Terry Hershey Park, and then there's this like, you know, 100 feet of just like ragtag fence, so.
And you can take it down one step further, the fence that runs right behind the office building. I mean, I'm sure it's on life support as well.
This one?
It's parts of it are. Some of it's in pretty
Well,
shape. Parts
that's
of it
individual
are.
homeowners, right? That's all individual
Well,
homeowners?
so
Well,
that's the
they
question.
close
Again,
it. That's a good question.
It comes back to everything that we've continued to talk
Keep
about.
kind of
At some
regular
point, that
fences.
as an association, you got to make a decision about what you want to do in terms of maintaining the property. And it's been my opinion is that, you know, I think the homeowners association's got to take that responsibility and do it.
I'm waiting for them to come fix my back fence.
You know,
Right, I mean, that, you know, that extends to every, you know, you're talking about like the houses that border
Right.
that, you know, that are on the borders of Thornwood as opposed to the ones inside, and that applies to everything. Memorial News over here, Sheffield Square over there, and then going down Kimberly onto the next one past Sheffield Square, and those fences are horrendous.
Right.
But, you know, do we as an HOA go in and do those? Well, if we had the money
You got the money.
and whatnot,
Well,
we would,
and to
but
be
they're
fair,
not our highest priority.
I'm not asking for a 10-foot brick wall. I mean, a 10-foot
You're asking
wood
for
fence.
1,500 feet of fence, $1,500 fence.
Yeah, you know, the extra tall one, because, you know, the second-story apartments.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
Well,
with
but
you.
is
I'm
there-
not on the perimeter and I'm with you.
But is there a way
Well, I
that
chose,
we could
I know
approach the people who live on the perimeter to say, you know,
I don't think we can approach those until we're ready to put funds up to do
right,
that.
would
It
they,
doesn't
I
make any
mean,
sense
so
to-
we wouldn't, would it not make sense to ask if they would go halvesies?
I think it does make sense, but if you're not prepared to spend that half, it doesn't make sense to start
Well,
that
we would need a
conversation.
special assessment for that. I mean,
You know, I think I mean, you know, you could probably go through $50,000 replacing wooden fences throughout this neighborhood. And I have no idea how much of the wooden fence, is that a third or is that 80%? I have no idea, but there's a lot of wooden fence you could do. And, you know, you are correct, that's the best way to do it, is just go to every homeowner and say, look, boom, we need $150 because we got to replace all this. This is what it's going to do for our neighborhood.
Well, see, I think most of us who live on the perimeter, especially backed up to something undesirable, would be happy to take our little home improvement loan, you know, fund that everybody's got to have and say, I'll give you $200 out of that if you make it happen.
I think there's a lot to be said for a matching program. I think there's a lot of benefit.
But if we think,
So do we make that a big agenda item for next year to say
But you
like,
don't need it
this
if
is
you're not
a
on
greater need than per se the You know, so I don't know if that would be difficult to achieve, to get the $100 increment, and then to say also, we would like a special assessment for the back.
I think our current strategy is, you know, like we did, you know, the last year with this special assessment for the fund. It wasn't tagged to any specific fence or wall or entrance or anything. The idea is to build up a fund. I mean, the problem is if you look here at all the numbers in red, okay, and then you look at the $10,000, I mean, we've got a list already that's more than what we got in that $10,000. And you know, how do we come up with that number? Well, we say, what will people, you know, be comfortable swallowing? And that's really the challenge.
I'm not sure it's as easy as everybody is suggesting.
It's not.
I'm one of the homeowners on the perimeter. I back up on Memorial News on Langford. So, you know, I understand what everybody's saying. I actually looked into getting an extra high fence. We decided just to put up some trellises and try and train the wisteria to grow that way. It's actually not we're doing too badly. The wisteria is doing okay. But when we looked into actually putting up a physical fence that was higher than what we already had there, one of our other neighbors, and I won't say which one, who was a lawyer, said, I'm not sure you can do that because of other things out there. And, you know, he wasn't too specific. I took him at, you know, what he was saying.
No,
it's not going to be restrictions.
The utility easement would only be.
Maybe utilities, it was something else
Oh,
involved.
there is something on utilities,
aerial
it's an aerial easement, like so they get cranes.
Yeah, and of course, there are cables running by, and so you have to be careful.
So that's 15 foot.
Yeah, and since my wife was pushing for it, I didn't want to spend the money anyway. The trellises sounded like a great idea.
You got an excuse.
I know,
But you don't feel it.
there's some 10-foot fences in our neighborhood.
Now, wait a second,
there's
I'll
no-
tell you, the guy across the street from me, who actually his address is Berkshire, but he's next to those other apartments, he put up the fence and he says, if they want me if I'm encroaching on something, they'll come tell me.
Right, yeah. Now, he put up, I remember I went over and talked to the guy
It's
years ago,
awesome.
he asked. He said, this is exactly what I'm doing. We're like, do it, have at it, get after it.
well,
And,
yeah.
If it's against the rules, he said he'll let them tear it down. Because he's willing to put the money in now and figure if ever they actually exercise that easement or whatever it is, they'll just rebuild it when they're done.
I talked to Jen Hoskovac, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, but they live over on Kimberly, backing up to Sheffield Square. They moved in like a year or two ago. When they moved in, the previous owners had put in a 10-foot fence, and I don't know what plantings and stuff, but it's a pretty dense, tall fence, and they didn't even realize the apartments were there when they bought the house. Because you go in their backyard and you would never know.
you would know it's in the
Excellent.
backyard. You only know when you go
Excellent.
So it's possible, and in an ideal world, homeowners would recognize that and take the initiative themselves, because it clearly is going to raise your property values if you can create that effect. One of the things that frustrates me sometimes is, and you saw it in some of the town halls that we've had before, annual meetings and so forth, and there's this expectation that the homeowners association should be spending all their money to increase our property values, and that's that initiative for Thornwood. If you want to increase your property value, model your kitchen, get in the front door, and put a big fence in your backyard, and that will increase your property values.
A lot
more than us putting,
Like
different kind of flowers in the entrances or something.
All right, can we get the bottom one now?
He's researching it with the energy corridor.
No, I talked to Bob and I talked to.
Yeah, so this bottom bullet is, actually Laura and I met with Robert Rayburn, who's the
Architect, official architect of the energy
the
corridor.
executive architect for the energy corridor. And our agenda was to go over there and see if he could help us influence Elder's Place to put a sidewalk in over here. And we got much more than that.
A sidewalk where?
Turkey Creek Drive, like between Memorial and
Our first
pretty much
house.
the entrance to the pool here.
So all along in front of their building, behind their building, along the parking garage entrance, where it's so dangerous, there are people going in and out. And the fact that there are people coming.
Where would it stop?
Well, where the street narrows.
Right here at the pool?
They'll just pass it.
At the corner of the garage, right?
Yeah, their property. It'd have to be on their property, on their property. But when he found out that a lot of people coming off that bus go in that building, back and forth, that we're not talking about our residents trying to get to the bus stop, we're talking about their customers trying to get to that bus stop. He jumped up and said, oh, well, in that case, yes, and he ran off to go do it. I have no idea if he's going to do that.
Yeah, so he's like the stuff I've been dealing with on Eldridge Place, I just worked with the building management, but Rayburn's actually got, you know, a relationship with the owners of the building. And so he's, you know, because that would definitely be a capital investment for them. It's not just, you know, some operational thing. So we're hopeful that will get some traction.
That'd be cool. Sure. Yeah. We talked a little about Texas drought plants earlier today.
Yeah.
Drought tolerant plantings. A lot of that not just for the Kimberly embankment there, but just we're trying to be a little more responsible in terms of what gets planted around Thornwood as a whole. I mean, as you saw last year with the drought that the city had and restriction of watering and things of that nature, you can spend a whole lot of money watering and things will still die. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to do in terms of managing our resources is be a little more in tune with our water bill. Drought tolerant plantings, that can help with that. Obviously, we can still have, you know, the change of the season with colors and things of that nature, and like Laura said, you know, having everything consistent across the entrances not only gives us identification, consistency of our neighborhood, but it also helps stretch our dollar along the way as well. A lot of the work that was done initially at Kimberly Embankment was volunteer work, and I think there's still more volunteer work we can do there to get some things done. The biggest problem with the Kimberly Embankment, there's just no water. And it's just, you know, it's $6,000 to try to put water in there.
It's not our property.
And it's just, and
yeah, we don't know.
Take that issue out. I mean, but
Across the street from the Third Branch Pool. There's a fence behind Sheffield Square Apartments with a piece of grass or dirt essentially that runs along there where Kimberly jogs. It's dirt. I think they took the mulch out. There's nothing there. I think they took the mulch.
yeah, so,
Well, we put the pavers down.
Sarah Tyler.
I think there's more.
There's
Wow.
tons of
Okay, but we've asked them to bid on putting in some native ground cover, and the reply I got was, what? So I'll push on that a little bit at a time. They did not understand the words I used. I'll try other words next time. And I have not yet talked to them about this small planter over here. I didn't understand the question, but now if Mike showed me, I'll ask them about that. The landscaping people, they're like idiot savants. They know plants, but sometimes the words I use don't actually communicate, so we have to try 3 times around until I find the words that make sense to them. But once they've got it, they've got it. So I feel pretty good about it. It's just inch by inch.
So those are some things that we'll do there. And you know, when they clean the pools, the pool water just goes directly out to the street, and it really just makes it a lot easier on all the pool equipment, having a backwash and things of that nature and stuff like that. And so, you know, this is something Mike has talked about for years, is that how can we capitalize on that water?
It's red, we're not talking about it anymore.
Yeah, it's not a chlorine, it's a done deal. So if anybody's a chemist knows something that we don't know, share that idea. But
when I was working in pool, they told me put it down the main drain. The main drain, the big one, because the stuff that comes out of some of this stuff, it's clumpy, sludgy, nasty.
There's nothing sludgy coming out of our stuff. Our water's clean when it hits the streets.
Okay.
It's clean.
But it's not flush from the filter.
No, it's not. It comes directly from the pool to the street because they bring in their own motor. They bring in their own pump. He sets it up. He's gone now. And he connects in the hose, and he just moves around, and it comes right out there, and it runs onto the deck, and it hits our drains, and they vacuum it out once a week, and in the summer, it'll be twice a week. It's clean water. It's clean as it's gonna be. Because if we're getting clumpy stuff out of our pool, I can take 5 board members who'll be lynched. You know, it's exactly what
No, not vacuuming.
So we talked a little bit about our pool furniture, or our pool furniture, as I said earlier today. What's our delivery date on that? Are we picking up?
Thursday.
y'all sprung for delivery?
No, this is
Free.
free.
Yeah, it's even
When
better.
you buy enough,
Even better.
they come to you.
So, Laura found a bid from a couple years ago. We saved $2,500 on the pool parking lot, on the parking lot repair out here.
5,500, he said he'd do it for the same bid. he wrote for me.
And that's just something that's got to get done from a facility standpoint.
Thank you.
And it comes with a 5-year guarantee if you let it do it.
I mean, we've talked about it and we agreed last year to do it, and I think one of the things Mike sat down and was like, damn it, let's do it. So we're finally pulling the trigger on that to get that done. And it's just got to get done because it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Is it, are just the holes being fixed, or is it?
No, it's gonna be
He's
all
gonna,
fixed.
he's gonna scrape it, level it, tack it, and 1.5 inches of asphalt.
Square up the corners so the,
Oh,
it's
my kids are
defined
gonna.
in.
Right. And
Bonkers.
so we'll do that.
Well, and there's a guarantee, he actually comes with a guarantee and a 5-year warranty and a whole mess.
Good deal.
So, we
Awesome.
talked about the access control systems under some of our advanced technology that Bob was talking about earlier. And that's going to allow us to be able to manage the clubhouse facilities here a lot more. And because we've got the wireless networks at both the pools, it gives us the capability to do that. We'll also be able to manage our air conditioning things that way so it doesn't just run around the clock. And it's programmed now so that we don't have that problem.
Well, I just raised it from 60 to 72.
Well, that's because my guy here was 84, and I had to put it, and I got here at 6:30. So I needed this place to get cool quick. And it got to about 72. So, it took 2.5 hours to drop those 12
Put the
degrees.
lights on and people in there.
So we've got, the plumbing repairs, a lot of that was funded, through the specialist estimate of $10 a home last year, which was really good to help offset some of that. We have a working water fountain now, so that'll be exciting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. And then apparently Turkey Creek Park, or what we refer to as the green space, earlier in the meeting, there's a lot of activity going on there. And Mike wants to put in a planter box here.
This is an existing one that we've never ever made.
On the other side over there?
The other side of the driveway that
Yeah.
drop clean dog legs out.
I just figured it was his.
There's three holly, that's ours,
There's three,
three
yeah.
holly bushes.
So
are
I'll
on
add
there.
that to the landscaper's list of things to maintain.
Okay.
And we'll take out those old holly bushes
Okay.
and put in flowers.
Yeah, visit with them on that.
I was saying, you're the one that talked to the
Yeah.
neighbor
He
about
did.
the fence and stuff.
He did.
Okay, good. Cool, man. Yeah, absolutely. I just figured they were always his.
No, they
Never want to
maintain
talk
them
about
for
it.
us, but yeah, they're
Okay,
ours.
even better. Even better.
So what do we do, will it be open for discussion, what we decide what to do with Turkey Creek Park?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Well, tomorrow we're meeting with people who will give us suggestions.
But, and then, yeah.
Can we blast something up? I know it's kind of.
Mike, I got your email,
I don't know if you
and
want
my
to-
concern, just because we come to this park 3 times a week at least, I just hate for all of it to just be designated to garden. And I don't say it like garden, I'm not saying it like that at all.
I think garden's a general term. I don't
Okay, I
think
mean,
it's a
just,
specific
we
term.
love this park. My kids ride their toys over here, we swing over here, we about die on the swings weekly, and we inspect everything that's growing.
You ride the
and,
death wheel?
I almost threw up on the death wheel, and I vowed not to get on it anymore. But I mean, just the swings are so rickety, and so, I mean, my husband and I have been campaigning, I've been trying to see if maybe his company could spring to buy new swings for the park, because it's so bad.
These new frames with rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's all really bad. So I just don't know, I would hate to think that my kids wouldn't have a place where we
Yeah,
could.
No one's talking about planting the
Okay.
whole thing with food.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's just, I just want to make sure that my
No, I think it's just a
understanding is.
general
The
term.
area that we've got now is the only always sunny spot. So we're talking about extending what we've got from this much to this much, but we're still not going wall to wall.
So they've got about 100 square feet out of 60,000, so yeah, we can improve.
Well, I know, because you were 60,000 square feet, I was like, that would be the whole thing.
Now,
Yeah, it'll never be that, yeah.
But that's when he has to talk to people about the whole property. We've also got, we planted the fruit trees back where the dog run is.
Yes.
And I think the dogs
Yes.
are very happy with those trees, it seems to me.
They seem to be handling it well.
Yeah, that seems
And
to
I
be
love
good.
the new seedlings that are there, we've examined those seedlings of the pines that have been planted.
Well, I think one of them may be dead, yeah, one of them's good.
I mean,
But
it's
that's
just,
the thing.
it's been really neat for for my kids to look at and to enjoy, and I don't wanna see that go away.
No.
But I also don't wanna see the enjoyment of the park that
We're
that it
trying
brings
to
us.
diversify, bring more people in, so we would never shut out the kids in the playground. We definitely want to add garden people, we want to add dog people, we want to add tree people, we want to add people who compost. We don't want to shut anybody out.
But the other thing that I'm point on the list is the blue, between the blue and the green thing, between the green things that we've accomplished and the blue things that we're still talking about trying to do, none of those are really improving the neighborhood. They're all kind of maintenance items and sustaining items. But that effectively wipes the budget out. We're done for the year.
It's true. It takes all we have just to run in place.
Okay. So that's then the segue into.
What needs to be decided. So clearly this comes back to, I think, the first topic we talked about here. The $100 is really the starting point in our estimation. You know, it probably doesn't make any sense to try to do anything less than $100. You know, you just kind of spinning your wheels. What's the ideal number? You know, I don't know. I've looked around the other areas right around us. You know, I think Nottingham Forest 8. I think they're paying $650 a year is what I saw. Just something recently. I know in Westchester, from what I understand, that they pay different amounts. I don't know if that's based on when the house was built or if it's per square footage or exactly how that is. But Westchester, they pay different amounts, things of that nature. And you can go on HAR and you can see some things there and stuff like that. And clearly, you know, they've got a larger number of homes, but Nottingham Forest 8 is clearly a smaller number of homes, and forgot what that number is, but it's not far off from us.
No, they have about 300.
Yeah, it was less. There you go. And I think they're paying about $650. And Nottingham Forest, they don't even have a common facility. As a matter of fact, they're asking us about leasing space over here for their monthly meetings. Because as you know, your monthly meetings have to be open to the homeowners.
Monthly?
Well, your
board meetings.
Board meetings.
Board meetings, things of that nature. So they're interested in using our facility as well. Not that it's going to become a big cash cow for us to host neighborhood meetings here, but you know, it is what it is. But you know, just think about it. You know, whatever the number is increased, multiply by 389, or as I just do 400. So you know, you figure for every $100 you can get at 400 homes, that's a pretty significant chunk of change that you can do some things with, whether it's build, maintain, or save. You know, $40,000 is a big chunk of money. You can do that over 5 years. All of a sudden, you know, you've got boom, a couple extra $100,000 to be able to do some stuff
Yeah,
with.
our reserves back.
Yeah, there's no question about it. You know, it's important. I mean, even though we are a nonprofit organization, we do still need to have reserve funds around, and we are well insured from any and every disaster. But keep in mind that insurance comes at a cost. You know, we pay almost $13,000 a year to insure the facilities around, and you know, the question is, you know, is $300,000 enough to replace our facilities? Well, I think the answer is no, it's not. But you know, if you start, and the likelihood of 2 facilities getting completely wiped out at one time are probably much more likely than winning the lottery at, you know, $580 here recently. So those are things you just got to kind of think about, you know, when you start looking at, you know, what things cost to repair and do.
I really think the argument is going to be, there are people here on fixed income. We cannot slam the annual assessment to $700.
No, it wouldn't be practical. It would be too hard.
I mean, I would love to be paying that and getting the benefit from that. So there are people here, I think I could easily make a case for a $750 assessment compared to other neighborhoods along Memorial who do things, and we'd not to have nice walls, but in acknowledgement of the people on fixed income and not doing the sticker shock, I think we could sell the $100 increase, or just round it up to $600. That might actually be more palatable. I hate the 95 thing.
600.
Well, yeah, make it 600. we'll increase it 105 or
Because
something.
they're
but-
used to paying, if you look at the last 3 or 4 years, everyone's used to paying
Right.
about $100 more.
Yeah,
Right.
and it would be fairly painless.
So-
We're just gonna take that, oh yeah, we need this again and again. Well, let's just say it's always there.
What is the ratio of residents that are on fixed income now? Could we theoretically, I mean, could we not start something like where you have a scholarship fund? You know, like for those,
There was, Brad, when he was running the board, he put out an 8-year plan to increase it incrementally. And if you were, you know, if you've been here like 30 years, you'd be grandfathered in at 495.
Wow.
If you were, you know, if you were at a certain age level, you know, so like when you become, you know, retired and your Homestead Act protects you or keeps your rates down, I forget what it's called.
It's just
Yeah.
Now it's
freezing it,
the senior
Yeah.
citizen tax
Yeah,
exemption.
Right. You know, that was part of his plan as well. And his idea was, I think, if I remember correctly, it would go from $500 to $550 in year 1. Year 2, it might go to $575, then $600, and $625. It was over an 8-year period of time, and it would get you up to, I think, an $800 figure. But it would allow you to plan this. And to go from 500 to 800 over this 8-year period of time is pretty reasonable to be able to do that. And like I said, there were determining factors in there. If you met this type of criteria, then you would be locked in with $8 amount.
Now, it's
there
worth pointing out that in spite of that,
It didn't
it
happen.
didn't go.
Right.
Yeah.
No matter how reasonable it is.
And it was killed in section 4.
Right.
That's right.
Which
That's right.
one's section 4?
Section
Over
4
there.
is
south of Thornwood.
is where
Is that us? Is that us?
No, section 4
So those
is,
must be
South of
the
Thornwood.
more of the older,
I
that might be able to
don't
fix
actually
income?
know the demographics,
Okay.
although I will say, I mean, Shirley lives in section 4. I think that maybe they just have more influence. But you know, basically, if you have to get, and this is, you know, the last bullet thing, you need to get 50%. You have to get signatures from 50% of each section.
okay.
So section 3 is like 12 houses. I was talking with Jack Jones already. We figured out we've got section 3 because he knows some people and I know some people, so that's easy. Okay. But you know, basically, and then I think section 4 is the next smallest section. And you know, they can kind of filibuster us and stop it. So it really.
So if we can ever get it passed, you know, get the change, we need to change the language at that time that says just 50% of the whole neighborhood, right? Not, so we don't have this problem.
That would be a two-step process.
Unfortunately,
If you do that
And
separately,
Brad
Right.
if you do not do that separately, you will never get the base assessment increased. I can guarantee it. Because I've walked this neighborhood 3 times. We bought our house in '06. We've tried this 3 times since I've moved here.
So you're saying we have to
2
change the structure?
2 out of the 3 times, we couldn't even get 50% of each section to vote.
no, you're right.
So,
It's never
you know,
gonna change.
this last time, we actually got 50%, just barely of each section, and only one section shot us down by, I think it was 3 votes or 5 votes?
The when Brad was president, if I remember correctly, it was section 4, and
That was 3.
no, it was 4. 4 didn't vote because they had the largest number of homes in a single section. I think it was 88, or maybe it was section 1.
No, I'm saying you need to vote just on the base assessment change.
Right.
Worry about
Agreed.
changing everything else
Yeah,
later.
correct.
Because if you start putting more
Oh,
things,
yes,
the more
just
things
one
you
thing.
have on the ballot,
That's
the more
right.
confused people
And
get.
that's what we learned many years ago. We learned that many years ago is that, okay, clearly the neighborhood doesn't want to handle multiple decisions at one time. One is best. And so that's what we agreed this year is our main goal when we sat down and our planning is that we're going to attack this one thing only, and let's get that done. Because if we can get over this hurdle, then you can actually start showing tangible results in the neighborhood to try to get across some of those hurdles. And it's no secret that your bylaws or covenants not only are the strength of your neighborhood, but they are the downfall of your neighborhood. And I got a guy that I cannot get to stop parking on his grass. And I'm so tired of hearing complaints about it. I'm so tired of seeing it. But you know what? Right now, the neighborhood is not going to do anything to change it. They're just not going to do it. And so there's some things that we're working on behind the scenes to be able to get done. But it sucks. And he's parking, and more importantly, he's parking on your common area. He, his wife, and his kids are parking on your common grass. And it's just not a lot we can do about it because covenants don't allow us to, you know. Now,
we've skipped a bullet. I want to go back and look at that. We've talked about picking a new base assessment, and everybody that I've talked to says $100 is doable, $105 to get it to 600, that's doable. Nobody's going to go for 200. 150, you're going to get enough pushback. No, let's just stick with the 600. But what about going forward? It seems like to me that we could get not only a new base assessment, but also a simple, straightforward way to keep that cap moving up at a steady pace. Not necessarily 2% a year.
Do the one thing first.
Yes, I don't think people are.
Seriously?
Do the one thing first. We have been very unsuccessful. I've lived here through the three things. I came about the same time you did Thornwood. I think I moved here in 2005. Great neighborhood. Every time I go to the bloody annual meeting, it's, oh gosh, you know, it's just.
Well, this wouldn't be an annual
So you're
meeting.
saying, you change it so that your annual fee is $600 with a maximum cap of $625.
Well, see, that's the thing. It
Well,
is.
that's the maximum cap.
No,
then,
just
right?
600.
Make it 600.
And stop
You
there.
said stop there.
Yeah, but
Well, that's fair feedback.
then 3 years down the road, we're stuck in the same.
Yes, we are. And maybe the next
We
group.
come back next year and say, now we
Revise
want
that bylaw again.
we want to revise again and have a steady
Do you
increase.
think we'll be more amenable to changing it every year? Really?
I don't, I want to
No,
do it all
no,
now.
it's one thing at a time.
One thing at a time.
One thing at a time.
That's,
Either go for $600 or say, we're going to increase it X% a year, and next year it won't be $600, it'll be 500
520
or 520. Okay? But I think you'd be better off one thing.
Just raise the
And
cap.
because
I'd
some
rather
people
just
could
move the cap
disagree
to
with
600.
the some people could agree with the 600 and disagree
With the cap.
with the continue rising. So then you're not going to get those people
Right.
because they're only going to agree with half of
So
what we
do
want.
one thing.
So if we just say the 600, we have less people to dissent because there's only one issue, not two or
And you
three.
have the data from the special assessments from the last 3 years that we need the.
We're paying it anyway.
We're paying it
Oh,
anyway.
absolutely, we're paying it anyway. And there's no doubt you pay it anyway, and it's.
And you're paying it anyway. yeah.
And it's very easy in terms of, you have 40 homeowners show up, and as long as 21 say, yes, you're good to go.
The special assessment for budgetary cap is easy to do. So why are we even talking about
It's
this?
not that, it's not the right thing, because
That's a
you're
good
just
point.
not,
You're
you're
not
not
budgeting.
planning for your neighborhood.
The risk
The risk is that it
the risk
says no.
is they vote down a budget gap, okay, and we're sitting here with $495 for our whole budget, and
And we
not
don't
running
have a
anything.
reserve fund.
Okay.
If we're walking
We
door
have-
to
we don't have a
door,
reserve
what's
fund.
easier to sell?
Well, that's the graph.
I think you
We
made it very
need to make
clear.
a graph that shows the reserve fund going to zero.
Yeah.
That's,
Because that's where
but
we're
you-
headed.
that's all about
That's what people want to
$600.
see.
That's all about $600.
No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, I see exactly what you're saying. It's just a flat dollar amount. End of story.
And it's easy, it's understandable.
It is easy, and it is understandable. I don't disagree with you there, absolutely.
But I
And
don't-
And I agree, it's not the ideal
It's not where we
situation.
wanna be.
It's not where we want to be, but it gets us part of what.
But we've learned, and we've heard from people who've been here as long as us and longer than us, that this neighborhood only wants to do one thing at a time.
Well, I don't even want to do the one
They
thing.
don't even
I
have to.
understand. So, because really, ultimately what happens is that, at the way services are today, at $495, at $500, Thornwood can't exist. So what happens? You make a decision, you go to city trash collection. That's the first thing you do. So you go from twice a week back door to city trash collection.
Nobody's
and to the
listening at that
garbage
point.
cans.
Nobody's listening.
When
When
do
we
we
go
vote?
door to door,
No, no,
we're
no.
gonna ask somebody either for $600 instead of $495, or we're gonna ask them for a 5% increase per year on the cap.
Well, and a lot of times neighbors just wanna know, well, how are you voting? What are you doing? That's how I
Well,
I've
there's
seen
gonna be-
pictures last year.
there's gonna be
just
5 or 6
Just
people-
vote yes, Tom, and let's go, you know,
Yeah.
and then I went on to the next house, you know, so when is the vote? And how much time do I have to get these people on board? That's what I
Well-
wanna know, because I will take charge of my block.
We don't have
Well,
a petition.
before we
already.
can get people to start signing stuff, we need to decide what is it that what is the amendment that we're proposing?
I thought whoever proposed that the index fund thing was the clever solution, because you're asking for one thing, but you have the potentials for that thing to move in relation to whatever you want to benchmark to.
So-
The only downside is a little hard to explain.
Yeah.
It can be very complicated to explain, and
Right, but it was a clever.
it makes complete sense, and that's something that we've kind of all talked about, and it's led us back to, okay, well, then it's just a flat 3% increase.
But you don't want to do it.
Right.
Why not?
Well, because our water's gone up 20% this year.
Well, no,
Well,
the
no,
Thornwood
that's
index
what I'm
takes
saying.
care of it. The problem I saw was, if you take the Thornwood index is how much is everything going up? And what's everything cost from July to July? Let's propose we increase it by that percent in December. The problem is, they'll say, well, it's because you spent too much money.
Oh, I wasn't imagining it was like, I imagined it would be something like, we take 1/3 this neighborhood, 1/3 this neighborhood, 1/3 this neighborhood, whatever they're doing, that's our number.
Whatever they're doing.
Whatever they're doing for their.
Assessments of other
Yeah.
neighborhoods?
Other neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, I think, first of all, other neighborhoods, and I know this because I go to super neighborhood meetings with Tom every week, every
So
month.
unique.
And, first of all, you know, Tom mentioned a few of the assessments up and down Memorial. First of all, they are all over the place.
All over the place.
Barker's Landing, $1,000 bucks.
It's $1,000.
Oh, you get like
Memorial
Fortune's
ticket
Memorial
is like-
ticket, 1,700. I
Wait.
just saw it on HAR.
Fleetwood is 7.
And Nottingham 8
No,
is
no,
530.
Fleetwood is not
That's
700.
And Gatewood is like
One
300.
time,
Oh,
Nottingham 8.
That's
Whatever he was
close
saying,
enough.
having no
Simple.
comment.
Security.
Yeah, because we
Yeah,
looked
I
at Barker's
think
Landing.
simple. Got two
And if you want to make it really clear, give it to them as an either or. Either we do the 600, or we go to city garbage collection.
No, and that is.
No, and then carry through with it.
No,
Yeah.
you're.
And
I like
carry
it.
through with it. We
I
need
like
it in
it.
order to break it,
I like
or
the
we go to
scare
city
tactic.
guard, that will safeguard our budget, and we'll do it, be exactly what we want to
The
be.
great thing
It's
is-
almost like
It's what we teach
a poison pill defense, right?
Because
It's
the
like,
people
is
that are
this or
reluctant to
that?
do it want that trash. I
Well,
could care
and-
less,
and
but
the good
they
thing
want
about
it.
it,
Yes.
the good thing about it is we don't need their signature to switch over to city trash.
That's right.
That's
We
true.
only
You
need their
don't.
signature.
You
Stop.
don't, you
I will
go to
say,
city trash,
if-
and you don't have to be on city trash that long, and we can get off again.
Oh, I guarantee you can be on city trash about 90 days.
That's right.
And people will be saying, whoa.
But we lose recycling.
But you know what? That's
No,
okay.
it's not.
It's not guaranteed.
So we lose
It's the same thing with
recycling.
capacity.
Hey,
I talked about it.
it's all downside.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah,
And you've
they-
been to the annual meetings, and that's clearly something that's come about, because I can tell you that since I've been on the board, one of the things that we've done is say, look, this extra $85 we need, and these are the alternatives.
Real clear.
And
City
you
trash
get that.
for 600. And there's not,
Because I
even the
would-
people, even the old people who don't want to carry their trash to the curb will sign for the $105.
Oh, I think so. And and somebody asked this question. It's been estimated that as much as 30% of the neighborhood is quote unquote retired. Those are the numbers that I've heard, is that it's estimated as 30%. You know, I think that's probably a fair number.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
Why would we push for 600 as opposed to an increase?
It's simple. Everybody understands $600 versus $595 plus 5% with no end period. Right?
That's
what
And
I'm
I think-
saying.
and I think Flat pointed that out well, is that somebody may very well agree, oh yeah, we need to go up, but they could just go up 5% each and every year because they didn't have coffee this morning. That's just not, I see two sides of that. I do agree that 600 is a whole round easy number.
Round is good.
And I think y'all made a good step, and I think Cynthia over there, she made a good step. She's like, one thing at a time, because that was one of the things that we were attempting to do, was establish a new base rate with a percentage as an option to go up if you wanted to. And I get that.
Okay, so we get the 600 this next year, and then you tell people, in order not to get stuck in this same foxhole again, can we please talk about how we're going to estimate the next, a slower increase, so it's not so painful next time.
Take it as a different issue.
But it's a different issue.
Right.
And they will feel good that they've saved their garbage collection.
Right.
They will.
Or
idea.
you just take the increased issue by itself.
No, you take the increased issue by itself.
But I'm saying you could drop the 600 and just approach it from,
That's what I was.
we just want to go for how we're going to sustain our neighborhood. And this is what it's going to take, and focus on why we need to increase gradually.
And he's saying it's going to be too hard to
That would
explain.
be harder to
So
explain.
let me try a solution.
So we're never going to get there then. If we can't explain it this year, we can't explain it next year.
But you know
we
what?
can't-
Guys, listen to this, all right? How simple is this? We want to change the assessments to increase 5% this year and no more than 3% any following.
Why?
Why? Because that'll get us to $600 this year, and then we can continue to raise as our costs go up.
No,
Why would I vote for that?
525.
Let me run it.
Here's another
Oh.
quick.
Yeah, if I get you to 525,
Here's
it'll
another-
take you 5-6 years to get $600 at that rate.
I mean,
Oh, no.
you gotta get to
My
600 to make it, to close the
Right.
budget gap. And so it's a real stark contrast. We close the budget gap or we do away with something. Then we have a more leisurely conversation. You know, guys,
Give me the 550.
no, 5% of 6 is 35.
Okay, never mind.
So here's
I see
actually
what
another
you're
thought
saying.
too. These decisions.
You're winning me.
I agree with you, but
You have to
it
take
has to be
the
a
problem.
crisis for people to make decisions.
No.
People make decisions
Unfortunately,
under crises.
Okay,
Right.
but isn't the garbage a hollow threat, because aren't we locked into that
Nope,
contract?
no.
Okay.
Here's
It's
the,
one-
here,
one
it's
year.
very simple, is that if you can't afford to pay the bill, you can't have the service.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I was
It's-
just
it
checking.
don't break the
I thought
contract.
it was a 3-year thing.
Yeah, that's, no, I mean, because we've had years ago, someone brought that up, and so we just simply contacted our attorney. He's like, you can't pay the bill, you can't have service, no difference than being at your own house.
I actually agree, and the ones at a time, I think there's a way to work around it. We're thinking that everything has to be made at the annual meeting. There's nothing that
None of this is linked to
No,
the
none of
end.
this-
So there's nothing that precludes us from
Right.
putting the vote forward to move to 600 for next quarter, and then at the annual meeting, come back with this is our sustaining plan, so we don't have to come back and ask for a special
Right,
assessment.
there's
That's what we want to get out of it, is this treadmill of a special assessment plan.
Do we do want to go to the trip? Absolutely. We want to be able to go to the annual meeting. In my mind, we want to be, hey, here's what we did this year, here's our projected budget for next year, thank you very much. And by the way, how would you like to spend some of this extra money?
Right.
How would you like to grow your neighborhood?
And that would make them
Amen.
feel better.
Could
Makes
be
everybody
better.
feel better.
Absolutely.
So then, do we then turn around in the next year saying, we did such, this worked really well, but we've got to not get in this hole again?
Is that a conversation?
Yeah, I think you have a different conversation.
$600 probably allows you to go 5 to 8 years without having to go through that conversation again. And that's provided you're being mindful of what your funds are.
Someone wants to speak.
Yeah, I said the $600 to $800 though gets us right back in this thing, where by May, we've done all the maintenance items that we need to do, and we're broke.
No, there's no question about it.
So, so saying $600 is going to carry us for 5 years now.
No,
It doesn't
that's why I say
build our
it's
reserves. It's probably sustaining and minimizing what you can do.
It's treading
It's-
water.
I think that Bob had a valid point, though, he got lost in the numbers. Every time my husband renegotiates his contract with this company, that he can't stand to work for them full time, so they hire him hourly, and he screws them over every year, really royally. And the way he gets away with this is when they finally come to the table and go, oh my gosh, we have to have your expertise. He says, okay, well, the last time you hired me, CPI was here, you know, the cost of living index was here, and now it's here, and you have let me go 3 months without a contract, and I'm retroactively charging you what the cost of it, price index. So what I'm saying is, if we said, what about a 20% increase this year, which gets us to 600, because we know how to defend that, and then from here on out we do CPI.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Tied to
again, it's more
inflation, I think they would
complicated.
understand.
Yes, it is complicated, but it's all in one fell swoop.
Well,
But if you go past that, then it's no plus.
Well, and that's the balance, exactly.
And the problem with CPI is that's over an entire household,
That's right.
but a higher
It
household
has
budget
nothing-
items. Our budget items are trash, security, water, electricity. Trash, we can't negotiate any lower, we're totally at the whim of the market, security, water, electricity. We can cut back trash service, we can cut back security, water, electricity.
You can't cut back trash service because it's based on volume.
So-
Our volume's not going to go down.
So
but
like
it's once every
CPI,
3 times a week.
if your gasoline expenses go up 20%,
I said, you won't
but over a
fix
whole
it.
household, everything else is flat, that's a very nominal thing. But if 20%
Oh,
of fuel
yes,
goes up,
right.
You
that's.
go look backwards since we
I gotta leave. Because
No, thank you.
We
Appreciate
have a
it.
very
but to be
influential
honest with you,
And I think.
make it a crisis. People will react to a crisis and make it simple.
Scare them.
Scare them.
Thank you.
I'm just disappointed because I thought we were gonna get some growth out of this and we were gonna grow our community, but it seems like I'm way ahead and I just need to slow way down.
I don't think you're way ahead.
Take it one step.
I don't think
Because
you're-
$600 to me is not gonna get us anywhere, except that
Well,
we're able to pay our bills without a crisis. But we're not really, growing our.
Well, the problem is, if what he said is true,
Right.
that implementing an elegant solution will never pass the 50%
I know, I'm
perception.
One of the conversations that we had was trying to do 2 things at one time. Is A, go to $600, and for conversation purposes only, allow a 5% increase year over year. So you could go 600 in year 1, 630, or as much as
Yeah, that would
630
be
in
the
year
cap,
2.
not the required.
Right. And then the following year, so whatever that 5% of the 630 is, that gets you to about 670, 680. And so within about 4 years, you get to that revenue growth model. And then at some point, you're relying on the future boards to stop it, let's say $800 for math purposes, right? And then you hold there and you just move on. But there's nothing that also prevents future boards from coming back to the 600. Let's say it got to 850. So I say, oh, it's just ridiculous. They can bring it back to 600 for X period of time as well. And then you just live off those reserves. So you could truly have a peak and valley effect every 5 years. You could get into that. Is that a wise solution? I don't know that it works. But that's provided your expenses stay reasonable. I mean, I think, we've planned as a whole for expenses to go up on the average 4% across the board. That's what we've been lucky they haven't. Just kind of what we've anticipated. But, there's garbage will go up next year, and security will go up next year, and the city of Houston at some point will raise its water again.
Oh, no, water is going up,
Next 5 years.
next 5 years, 40%.
Oh, is it?
my God.
That's, yeah, it's great. It's already started. Yeah, we're already in the first year or 2, I guess.
Or 1 year ago.
Okay, so you've clearly got those things, and so you are correct at $600 flat, but we do kind of strap ourselves, and
Well, why don't we just pick a higher number then? We can still keep it simple and pick a higher number.
600 is a nice
Because-
number.
It is
Well,
nice
with
to have
600, it's nice people can manage $50 a month. If you
Right.
think about,
it's absolutely, that's
It's
exactly.
$50 a
and
month
that was
if
the
you
first thing
think
that went through
about
my
it.
mind as well. I think in my mind, the
it's
number
like
was
if you budget
$750.
$50.
In
for
my
12 months,
mind.
it's
I think so too.
I think so too.
$2
but I think that's a
something
hard
easy
number to
to-
sell.
When they're doing their monthly budget.
625,
It's-
650. Yeah, I'm thinking we should try to go a little higher if this is all we're gonna go for.
And that's what you come down. It's kind of like, you get all or none. That's what you're doing.
Exactly. That's what you're
You
flirting
put it on red or you put it on
Okay.
black. you know, where you put your money.
They're not gonna say, you know, well, 625 I couldn't do. If you'd only brought 600 to me.
But at the very least, you
Yeah.
just, and if it fails at the very least, in my estimation, and I've not discussed this with the other members of the board, that we have to come to the annual meeting and ask for a minimum $100 special assessments, just period.
Budget gap
No
assessment.
budget gap assessment, no more $53, no more $75, it's just flat rate, it's $100, move on.
Because we cannot keep tapping our reserves.
And the gentleman said it, he said it exactly there, is that somebody says, well, what if we don't get the $100? It's just like, well, we'll do one of two things. Either A, we'll spend all the reserve monies in 2013, or B, we'll cancel garbage.
Go to city garbage.
Because I think our neighborhood deserves security over the private garbage collection.
Definitely.
And that, I mean, that's how I see the priorities based on feedback over the years I've heard from people and stuff like that.
We'd be glad to charge you off your garbage, Jason can
You know, and you know, we're paying
I almost,
15, 25
I just feel like
that.
maybe the
Garbage sign
percent
is-
increase would be more valuable. Would it really be that much harder to sell?
So what? A bigger number?
Just the
It's
percent
more complicated.
increase.
It's not that it's just more complicated
It's
because
just more
not a lot of people can go, well, what's
How much
5%
would that be?
483?
Right.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
We would have to,
People
we would
want
have to
to
give
be able-
them the actual number
Yes, of
along with
course.
the percentage.
Yes, of course.
Which could change each and every year. That's the thing, it changes each and every year.
Retailers spend an awful lot of money setting the price point.
That is absolutely. 1995
There's
means a
no
lot.
business doing that.
Every hand that goes up, every call that comes in.
Science.
3 easy payments.
I
1995.
guess that's why we're at $4.95 now and not $5.
Well, it's
Yeah, exactly.
4.7.
You may be exactly right.
4.7.
Now, there's two different numbers in the book. And one of them is the regular one, and one is the cap, and we're stuck at cap.
So,
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, learned a lot. I can tell you, that was a very valuable comment. Thank you for coming, sir.
I don't think we're making any decisions tonight.
No, of course.
I don't know that, I don't know that we were looking for a decision. We were
We're
looking for
getting good
feedback.
feedback, you know.
So when are we up for a vote? Like when will
Yeah,
that
when is
come?
this gonna take?
Well, you know, somebody, you know, I
September?
think Mike made a good point. You know, historically, and I thought about this on the way over tonight, and only because I learned this from Brad several years ago. Historically, things like this have just been saved for the annual meeting.
Big mistake.
Maybe that's why it happened, maybe it was convenient. Don't necessarily know any reason why, and I'm not really too concerned about that. You know, this is something that, once it's agreed upon that this is the path we're gonna take, all you have to do is you gotta mail every resident first and foremost.
Notify.
You gotta notify every resident, and they have to be given at least 30 days or 21 days. What was it?
There's no time frame.
No, I understand, but there was some, it was for the annual meeting, that's the
For
time
annual
frame.
meeting,
Right, no, that's what I was saying.
yeah.
So there's no time frame. So we could mail this out potentially July 1st.
Well, I mean.
The lawyer has to write it
Lawyer has
up.
to write it up.
Right.
We could,
But you can mail it out July 1st, and you can have a 6-month window period of time. And, because you can always go back and re-solicit the residents who either haven't voted or those who voted against it.
See, it's not a one-time vote. It's not like, okay, everybody come to the annual meeting and vote.
You're
Okay.
collecting signatures.
It's
It's like
Like petition.
signatures, and you can keep pestering those people until they
Okay.
sign.
Name it
Well,
again.
I mean,
Let's do
there's
that.
great
Let's
guidance
do
to
it.
follow there. You start with the mailing, you follow up with the.
Right,
door-to-door
oh, trust me,
visit.
we will hit them with every communications channel that we've
No,
developed.
I don't doubt that from a technology standpoint, but with the idea being that you leave it open-ended, yeah, I think by forcing the issue in an annual
Yes.
meeting is not the way to do this.
People get upset.
You're gonna wanna drip on people.
Oh, no,
Right.
we gotta have a scoreboard
We gotta
that
take it
shows
each
how
down.
much
Exactly.
participating we're getting from
Scoreboard.
each section.
Oh my God, you know what? If we make this a 6-month campaign, there is no reason we can't have 2 or 3 different petitions going simultaneously.
Well, except for the legal costs. All
They'll
right.
wanna
Never-
shut us up,
what
they'll
was
say yes just to shut us up.
We do
after
have a beat
6
down
months.
with people, with just information, I mean, not information, but I mean, like, if it's out there, present, constantly, why not sign the damn thing? You know what I mean, like.
Except
move
people won't
on.
shut up, and so they know that. It's like PBS, they still don't shut up when you call in, you know that.
Mailing, it's expensive, mailing neighborhood.
But the thing is, that if you could actually have people signing up for each thing. Yes, I would sign this one, yes, I'll sign this one, yes, I'll sign this one. The one that gets 50% of everybody wins.
That gets confusing.
Right, we learned that.
It's easier to just vote against all three.
Yeah, I think we've all agreed.
Oh, no, there's no voting against. There is no voting
It
against.
is, you know, it's
You
the
can't
voting.
vote against it.
Just trash.
Check the yes box. That's a good lawyer right there. Find a way to craft it where there's no box.
There isn't a no box.
You either
Either we
answer-
get 50% of the signatures from every section or we don't. There is no no. There's only yes.
You know, so it's an educational thing, and that was the thing I thought over, is that, you know, doesn't have to occur at the annual meeting. They can go out, and I think the timeframe is to get it out, August.
Why August? Why not sooner?
Or whatever.
Let's talk to
Yeah,
Mark.
the problem is the windows, people's minds aren't on things like at home through the summer. I'd argue for people with families, start it around the school year.
Well, right, and that's kind of why I threw August out there, because we'll probably have our annual meeting at the end of September.
See, I would like to have this wrapped up by the annual meeting.
Oh,
Yes.
Because if we don't have it wrapped up by the annual
Let's
meeting,
do it.
then we're going back to the budget cap and all that stuff.
Potentially.
Plus maybe we'll all resign or something.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
let me
right.
offer this then. Put it out at the beginning of August, let people simmer on it. By the time you get to the annual meeting, you will either have momentum or you can throw down the
That's where you
flag.
throw down the.
That would be my expectation, is you'll have momentum either for or momentum against. I don't think you'll.
So-
That's when the reality can set in
So then
about what
reality-
And
happens if
it becomes very clear is that as a result of this failed petition, Thornwood has no choice but to
Here's our
discontinue the
budget
service.
for next year, and there's no trash.
Now, does that mean that they then can go back in January and go sign, put their signature on those things? and
They can re-sign the night of the meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be
It's
like,
bring-
if we don't
bring
pass
new
this
petitions.
Yeah, because
by this time frame.
yeah, because there's nothing that.
You gotta set a deadline in order
So,
to keep
so
urgency in the matter.
August, let's put it this way, I think we should.
Start the legalese now.
Well, yeah, first we need to decide what we're asking for, whether it's one number or an index or whatever, okay? And we got some good feedback on that, we need to make a decision now, all right? And then, I think we need to get it over to Mark and get the ball rolling now,
Get it out by the end of
so
the
that
month.
we have enough time between now and the annual meeting, which is only like, what, 5 months?
5 months.
Thank you, okay, it's coming fast.
Are you gonna deliver
Baby's
tonight?
coming.
22 weeks if you want it out.
I think April 15th you're going to
We
have.
gotta get this done before the baby.
I think we roll it out as soon as we
That's
can.
what
But the thing is, it can hang out there.
Exactly.
I think you should do it now so people can
And
talk
it
at the
should
pool.
continue to hang out there.
It's gonna
That's
take some
true.
time to get it all crafted out.
Well, I'm just saying, yeah, but if you can get something,
People
people
can be at the
can
pool
chit
so they
chat
can
at the
talk
pool
about it.
and have these conversations.
Oh,
if you can
absolutely.
get
And
them
have the
all.
notice at the pool.
I can,
Scoreboard, the big thermometers.
Here,
Oh, you
okay.
totally could.
And this is
That would
not
be
a-
great.
Have you voted today?
It's not a vote, it's a signature.
Have you signed on the dotted
Yeah, have you
line?
signed?
Yeah.
Have
We'll
you
have
signed?
stickers, I'll have for it, you can do whatever.
Because if we could get the right number, and I think that number is 750, you do away with these miscellaneous revenue income. You do away with pool memberships. Everyone gets to go.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
gonna be my question, if we
Everyone
raised it
gets their
something
pool.
like that, but everyone gets together.
Absolutely.
Well, but here's the problem, okay?
You know?
Private parties right here for free.
Wait. We got about 100 pool memberships last year. That's a quarter of the neighborhood. All right, that means there's 3/4 of the neighborhood who don't give a shit about the pool.
Exactly.
Well, and at the 750
I
level,
believe
you
that.
can't really justify dropping the garbage hammer. I think you gotta drop the garbage hammer and be ready for it.
When people don't pay their
You
assessment.
have to be ready to follow
It's gotta be
through.
reasonable.
So
But
as long
I
as
think
you're
we
ready
get
to-
started
It
soon.
sounds like you're ready.
I'd
You
do it at
start with-
750.
Thank you, Sarah.
How many
Thank you,
times?
Sarah.
You start with a nice soft sell campaign, and then if it's not catching up speed, then we start saying, well, I guess we'll have to cut trash, and then, if we still don't have it by the time the annual meeting comes around, it's gonna be a fun annual meeting.
Yeah.
Do we have to have a cyclone?
I think so.
Huh?
Oh,
I like it.
Oh, there's a little chain right up there. We'll talk call people.
Totally.
Are you called?
Yeah.
So,
Because that trash
Watch your
is
code.
gonna speak to the people it needs to.
Look at that, he didn't even like get on a toe.
Those are
I
gonna be
do have on
our
my to-do list to
non-signature
put
people.
along here, too.
And so that,
Right.
if we still need more of those at that point, then pull that trigger.
so,
But I think you have to
I
be ready to do it
actually
now.
kind of disagree with that a little bit. I think we can show some value other than using a stick. We can show a carrot.
we show value
We start with the
for driving.
carrot. We start with the carrot, and if the carrot doesn't
Well,
work.
Ben's presentation, although a bit wordy, is very effective at showing how we have held costs down as much as we could. We have not raised that special assessment ceiling. But we've crunched this, we've crunched that, we just can't crunch anymore. And we're still at 85 over the assessment.
That's why the votes went as well as they did last year. We'll agree with that.
And now it's time to go to 100 so that we've got a little space to breathe. And by the way, we need a path forward.
Okay, so our expenses for this year are estimated at 235 based on this slide here. And if you go to 650 a year, that only gives you 252K. That only gives you about a $30,000 increase over our
Or
estimate.
30,000.
Per year.
Surplus.
Surplus, yeah.
Which makes our reserves look a little healthier. And then next year we have some money to spend. That's not bad at all.
Whereas if you go to 700, then you're talking about an extra, you're talking a solid extra 50K or more.
See, I think
in
that might
surplus.
be
Right, but
too
you,
much.
but you gotta show them where you're gonna spend the money.
Absolutely, I think, and that would be part of
Well,
our.
but-
We're not used to that. We're just used to
Paying the
sustaining and
bills.
maintaining.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's the thing. Okay, so, but you know what, so the 600 or whatever, that gets us back to sustaining. Anything people will accept on top of that is all about building up our reserves.
One step at a time.
Well, there's not just the reserves, but those perimeter walls and improving the facilities. We already got, the playground needs new playground equipment. You're gonna have to resurface the whatever. You know what, I'm just saying, you can pitch 600 just to get us caught up.
Yes.
Anything more than that is, can we please catch up with the Joneses or whoever we compare ourselves to?
Who'll pay $700?
We would totally pay $700.
Right.
I would pay 8.
The problem isn't the people in this room.
No.
The problem is we need to figure out what we can get half of each section to swallow.
And I'm certain we can do 600.
And I am surprised with the agenda that y'all put out, talking about this topic. I thought this room would be packed.
Yeah.
People don't read them.
Wait, when did you send out an agenda?
They're watching online.
All of them.
How many people are watching?
Oh, good question.
Can you tell how many go back, or just how many are watching it?
We can
Live.
count.
One current, total 10 views.
Sarah was one of them.
What's that?
Sarah was one of them. She couldn't figure out how to put in a comment, so she
Oh,
put it
actually, the one current is probably me, so nobody's watching now.
That doesn't make you feel bad, does it?
Huh?
That doesn't make you feel bad, does it?
That doesn't make me feel bad. It'll be on YouTube. A lot of people will go back and watch it later. We had like 300 people watching the November 7th
The
meeting.
thing is that there's a lot
Or
of.
some of
watch
those may have been
that.
just watching
This is
for
bedtime.
It says bedtime.
It is, yeah.
I move we adjourn the meeting. We can continue talking.
So moved.
All right, since nobody's watching, I'm gonna turn on the TV.
All those in
The
favor?
TV just went off.
I
It's,
forgot about
Hyundai
that.
commercial.
Oh, it's on the commercial.
Then TV.
All right, everybody buy a